Death is a tangible force on Shard, as natural and visible as the swell and drop of waves. Death flows, sweeps, and cascades. In many ways, it's like a river or a gentle breeze. In others, it is devastation, fire, and ruin. Death is no abstract idea, nor some whispered rumor. It's not a mysterious phenomenon, blamed for clearly explainable events. Death can be spotted, not in some esoteric way or metaphor. No, death can be glimpsed with the eyes as it toils away in fields, as it leads a vanguard against beasts in unclaimed lands. It walks among the citizens in our cities and labors in the very workshops our artisans own. You see, death is just people. People who can no longer want, desire, or aspire. Yeah. Enough of that. We're about to jump in, y'all. I finished playing the pre-recorded voice clip, but they don't know it's pre-recorded. Everyone, be quiet. My mic is definitely not live right now.
I knew it was. Yeah, I knew it was because my stream wasn't muted, and I was like, "Wait a minute!"
My stream was not muted. I mean, my stream was muted, so I had no idea what you guys were talking about because I muted it.
That's why I stopped mid sentence and was confused.
That makes sense. I mean, you told me you were working on an intro thing, so I guess I could have put two and two together and realized you played.
Yeah, it was quieter than my current mic because I didn't have a media player turned up that loud because I usually don't want to, explode anyone's eardrums. So
that's my job.
Tuesday beat is a bit quieter, but that's okay. We'll fix it in post if this gets post. But yeah, let's. I'm gonna drag us to visual.
I will repeatedly use the term "fix it in post" for things in real life just to confuse other people.
What's all this shit, you guys? Is this a new overlay? Wow,
it was good, man.
Wow, did Circuit Kid do more work? Holy shit! Look at that. What is that thing? Is that effort? What the fuck is that doing here? And that? What the fuck? What are you doing? Putting energy into shit. Anyway.
Hello,
Pixel Pharaoh.
Let's talk about the more energy that we're going to put into this. That we spent 3 hours discussing what we're going to spend 3 hours discussing.
Basically,
we did because we got on last night to talk about this stream at like 11 o'clock, and then we got off at 2 o'clock.
Goodness. Yep. So, for those not in the know, me and Hyperfase started working on a TTRPG many moons ago. Many moons
ago now.
Yeah, like 2 years ago. Been pretty off and on because, like life and ADHD and
definitely that.
The other stuff that happens when you're alive. So it's been pretty off and on. So we're kind of using the off Tuesdays as our dedicated time to actually work on these ideas. And you guys get to see it. Yay! Hopefully it's moderately entertaining. Also, Panda's here. So hopefully he has some questions and can keep an eye on the chat better than we will. And So we're just gonna see how it goes.
Closes Reddit.
It's gonna be fun on a bun. Closes Reddit. Hey, listen, only one of us can be on Reddit at a time. No, it's not me. It's certainly not me. I am going to preemptively get out the things I'm going to fidget with so that I'm not reaching across the screen later when we're talking.
I am going to fix your camera right now because something was weird with it. All right, it's good now.
Oh, all right,
cool.
I'm off center. It was showing the yellow border. It was like,
oh yeah.
Ugly.
You could see my fantastic piece of art behind myself that my old roommate made for me. Well, not for me. He made, and then I asked for one.
Oh yes, and of course the little music screen below there. I've got a playlist going. It is from Game Chops, so credit to them. Hopefully, you guys can see fairly well the titles of the songs and stuff. If you wanna check out that playlist, I should have had a link ready, but I don't. I'll throw it in the Discord after or something, or when there's a lull, I'll find it. So, or I'll go grab it, but I don't want to like potentially screw up the music back there. So, yeah.
Please don't stop the music.
Wow.
Dun, dun.
We got some new people. A Pixel Pharaoh.
A new people.
I didn't know we had royalty in the chat, but we do.
Oh my gosh.
Welcome. You definitely showed up on a kind of a weird day for us. This isn't our normal thing. Usually we're running Pathfinder, but today we're doing whatever this is.
Yeah. Whatever this is. Talking.
Making a TTRPG, which is what I posted over there. You know what I didn't do though? I did not set anything up to be able to show something on my screen.
Of course not. Why would you think to do that?
So that might have to happen live also.
That's fine.
But I did make that graphic.
I need to move this chat in a different place because I can't see it when I go to look at our actual stuff. That is not helpful.
So, what we discussed, there's we wrote down some talking points. Keep in mind, we're not like the best organizers ever, if you couldn't tell.
In fact, I am one of the worst.
I'm also bad at it. But we did nail down some talking points, and we decided that our kind of objective to figure out by the end of the stream is that by the end of this stream, we will know what our objective is the next time we do this. That's where we got.
Yeah, our objective is to get an objective.
Basically.
Mission failed. We'll get them next time.
But in the meantime, of course, we'll tell you stuff about the game and what we've got so far. Yeah. So, I guess we dive in. I guess we should do that now.
We jump in with all of the feets. I would say both feet, but we have more than 2 feet between us.
Well, it's only 9:14, man. Like that's kind of early.
No, we haven't.
Shouldn't we derail until about
minutes
10:45 and
I got panda-proof pretzels. They're
because they have a lid.
Frosted pretzels with peppermint on them. Yeah.
The peppermint. I see.
They have crushed peppermint, so they're panda-proof pretzels.
I did see those, and I was like, I want to eat some of these, but I'm not gonna.
I too want to eat all.
Might as well use cracker and toothpaste. Jesus Christ.
JB, aka Average Bear, asks, "Is there goats in this TTRPG?"
No. Which is weird because I love goats.
I mean, I assume there's goats in it. Like, we're probably gonna have a lot of Earth animals because it's hard to make up just a million other random animals and like why they are
other than just mashing animals together.
Yeah, we could go to
that. I'm not opposed.
Could go the Atla route.
Avatar the
element plus animal or animal plus animal. Yeah.
Yep. Just sticking 2 animals together and seeing where it leads us.
If there was no dive rolling, how would you play it? Like, Pixel Pharaoh asks, "Is there dive rolling?" Duh.
What is dive rolling? Asks Panda, the person who doesn't know things about TTRPG.
I mean, I assume it's the same as a dodge roll. You know, dodge roll.
Oh, battle action rolling,
or battle action rolling. Yay, the throwback.
There's lots of rolling. I guess I don't know. To start that off, we're not going to use a D20 system. We can talk about that.
That is true. Yeah, that's right. What we call a mission statement, I have written down as easier than 5e to pick up and play.
There you go.
Is kind of our goal.
Because originally when we set out to do this, we talked about passing. There's a game design term that I guess is not solely linked to game design, but it's something that is used in the like tabletop gaming industry a lot, which is called the Christmas morning test, where you want your game to be able to be unwrapped, unboxed, and playable within the morning of Christmas, right? When you get it for Christmas and it's usable. And so that was a thing we talked about that TTRPGs don't have. And we were like, we really want to do that. And then we started designing it and we realized that's functionally impossible.
Yeah.
And if you have no experience with the TTRPG. But what we did want to do is make something that can functionally pass a Christmas morning test for experienced players, and then also be an easy intro and still very fun and complex to pick up for newer players.
Ellie's asking if this is the one that we talked to Crispy about. Did we get into this with him, or is that just our other million
I think we
projects?
talked about it a little. Yeah, a million projects. We talked about it with him a little bit because we were working on. He was telling us about that one story thing that he had come up with, and I was like, oh, a lot of those elements are very similar to what you had developed for this story-wise. So that's the other thing is I went to school for game design. I did not graduate, but I don't graduate things. Anyways, I went to school for game design, and I did a lot of work on that. And so I'm trying to bring a lot of the elements I understood from that. And then I am also a longtime TTRPG, and then also just like tabletop wargamer and board gamer in general. And I'm trying to bring all of that experience into this. And then you bring an excellent amount of creativity and writing that we can use to back up all of the numbers that I'm hopefully going to be able to crunch for this thing.
Hyperfase is more of a Erlenmeyer flask instead of a graduated flask.
That's a joke no one is gonna get.
Also,
but
you did graduate high school.
I did indeed graduate high school.
You're also the only reason I passed Algebra 2, because I was so burnt out on math.
Welcome. Thank you, sir. You beat me to that. Yeah, you got there faster than I could.
Paying attention.
Oh, do we have a bot?
I clicked and opened it, and by the time I opened it, Panda had already axed it. So good job.
Ban.
I didn't even see what they said, but sure, yeah. I trust your judgment.
I mean, if it's a bot.
I was going to say something about Algebra 2, but that bot distracted me. Oh, I'm also, as much as you give me credit for you passing Algebra 2, I'm also a reason you probably didn't pay as much attention to Algebra 2. We spent way too much of that class talking about like story ideas and goofing off, and I can do that because math exists in my brain. So like I got an A in that class. Bro, I don't remember it. But
I was very much that point where like anytime we had a very good teacher, I'm not going to name drop them, but we had a good teacher.
They were fantastic.
Anytime they were like doing anything math related, which was a lot because that's what the class was for.
Right.
My brain just shut off. Like it was just like static. It was like the teacher in the Peanuts that womp, 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 womp. Like that was all I was hearing. I had nothing left because I had decided to take 3 fucking math courses in the same go because I wanted to get it all over with. And by that time, I was just like, I can't.
Had that exact same thought, which is why we were in the same Algebra 2 class. But I kept going and took 3 more math classes after that.
And the thing is, I hate math. So, whereas you kind of like math.
Yeah, I was real good until I hit calculus. That's when my brain went, skirt. No, thank you, sir.
But yes, back to your point. Yes, you did go to school for game design, and it was Dave or Hyperfase, whatever. You guys know his name by now. You approached me about wanting to do like create a game, basically. Yeah, because it's not really a thing that I would have come up with on my own, even though I've thought about it a million times.
Well, and one of the reasons I approached you is because of your authoring abilities. Because for those of you who don't know, Patrick is an author, and it's quite good. If you ask me, I've read a good amount of your stuff.
Writer, technically haven't been published. I'm self-published.
Okay. Which makes you an author.
Yeah.
But yes, you
are a
name
I don't use, but it's fine. Go ahead. I'm talking too much.
Writer, author, whatever. Semantics. As someone who loves to dwell on semantics, I'm fine being called out for them. But you are a quite skilled writer and creative person, as well as one of the reasons you're our GM, and you're very good at it. And you built the entire world of High-Eth that we play in all the time. So, I wanted to take that world building skill and attention to detail that you use for that and make a new game in a new place.
Very down for that.
because I knew that, the key to getting something done well is to find people who are good at that thing and have them help you do it. Also, I think at that point, that was when we were just hanging out on Mondays. This is before we lived together. And we were just hanging out on Mondays. And all we did on Mondays was talk about TTRPGs and the things that bugged us about them. And I was like, why don't we make one that doesn't do those things?
Yeah, pretty much. And so we started with the idea of beating the Christmas morning test, which it's like most of these companies that like make stuff have, like a team of more than 2. I can't give you hard numbers, but
with the exclusion of like the Dark Heresy Fantasy Flight game, which was just Alan Bly and John French. But yeah, okay.
Good God.
That was just those 2.
Yeah, well, they aren't like us, okay?
No, Alan Bly created the entire like Horus Heresy rule set system in the first 3 books by himself.
Have you tried just being a world class? Anyway, no,
oh yeah,
no,
God rest his soul, man. He was a great dude.
But yeah, so it's been through some changes, obviously, both in story and in substance and objective, because just like trying to make realistically, we could probably make a TTRPG that would pass the Christmas morning test, and it would be ludicrously simple. It would just probably not be very fun, right?
Yeah, it would be one of those things that would be entertaining to play one time.
Yeah, just like the fact you can open it up and like look at the book for 20 minutes and then play after like an hour, let people build their characters and stuff. And you can like do a module and be like, oh, that was fun. Guess we're done with that though, right? Like,
yeah, exactly.
It's like, what else are you gonna do? And then like to try to make it simple enough to do that, plus complex enough to be enjoyable for players like us, would just take a long time and a shitload of work. Even if we don't do that, even now, with our current objective, just easier than 5e to pick up and play, it's still going to take quite a while and a shitload of work. So,
well, and even get to the point we're at right now, if we counted it up, we have at least like 100 hours of work time put into this.
Easily.
At least.
Easily.
And so, obviously there's going to be more. And like, we haven't even gotten to the technical writing stages or
because a lot of
testing
that work
mechanics. So,
seeing what's stuck to the wall, right? So,
yeah.
But we're just musing right now. So let's get into some more of what we actually have concrete. Some of the little odd things about the system. Let's use our comparison. Let's use 5e mostly as our comparison, just because a lot of people know that.
Yeah.
So as opposed to your 6 ability scores that you would have in Dungeons and Dragons, your strength, dex, con, wisdom, or intelligence, wisdom, charisma.
3 mental stats, 3 physical stats is the general breakdown, right? Like
we just have
that's something
stats.
we want to call out. Yeah.
We just have 3. In fact, that's also half of 6. A lot of things are half of what are in a traditional D20 system.
That is true.
But yeah, we just have the 3 stats of mind, body, and soul.
We distilled all of the physical stats into your body. We distilled all of the mental stats basically into mind, and then soul is kind of more of an esoteric stat that encompasses a little bit of everything, right?
Mm-hmm. Soul stored in the balls. Wait, what?
According to a Tales from the Crypt episode, it is actually in your back, about midway down past your shoulder blades, because for some reason that episode of Tales from the Crypt was seared into my 8-year-old brain, where there was a doctor who was trying to get the souls out of bodies.
Man, I'm positive I saw that, but you pulled one that I don't remember, which is funny.
Yeah.
I
remember Are You Afraid of the Dark? Yeah.
That's so good as a kid.
Yes.
Yes. The balls of either gender.
Yeah, Ellie says the ovaries. Thank you very much. It's where the soul is stored.
Oh my gosh.
No, Ellie, it's one or the other. Right? It's either the balls or the ovaries. One of us don't get souls.
Only half. But yeah, so traditional. Well, I would say though our numbers for our stats are a lot lower than half of what your average is because our max stat is 5.
Yes.
Right. So talking about our stats and also for like character creation,
which is not half of 18 for those of you wondering.
There's a lot of stuff going into this that we haven't necessarily sorted all the details out. But one of the things we did figure out is like, we're probably going to do point buy, but we're also going to make a way to have you roll for stats. And then, one of the things for point buy is that your first point is free in each stat because you can't function without a brain or a body.
That's how you get them hooked. Is you give them the first one for free.
Yes, exactly.
So yeah, essentially if you were building a character, you'd have a 1 in each thing and you would use your points or whatever to add on top of that. And then 5 is the max.
Yep.
It's going to be a D10 based system.
I should have got some D10s to fidget with. I have them. I just didn't bring them over here. I don't want to get up and walk and get them. Yeah, exactly. That's my problem. I'm going to just keep playing with my shiny.
You have a whole box of roll downs.
Yes, but those are D20s, sir. Or spin down is the word you're looking for. But yes, I have a big box that my daughter was playing with earlier today. It's overflowing. Yeah. I need a bigger box.
You guys know what a D10 looks like.
Yeah.
I think we're lagging at the moment. Yeah.
Whoop.
I see a stream is disconnected. Attempting to reconnect. Ew. What the hell?
No.
That's not great.
I don't like that.
Maybe I should stop uploading all my Gundam Battle Operation 2 guides at the moment.
Yeah, that's what it is.
All right, what away?
No,
just in case.
I dropped a D6.
Just give I'm gonna do the thing that I haven't had to do in a while and like disable and re-enable the network connection thing really quick. So stream's gonna blip, So give it a sec here.
Blip.
Oh yeah.
As soon as I find it, there it is. Disable. Enable. Right, that ought to do her. It's reconnected.
Mr. Tricks.
There it goes. That should do it.
No, he's a king of discipline.
King of discipline. Self-styled.
Yeah. Oh, mine's lagging again. My stream.
Well, yours is on delay, remember? There's a delay.
Yeah.
Oh,
how long was it?
It's like 20 or 30 seconds.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, mine's back up and seems to be working just fine.
Yes, there it goes.
Now that I checked over, because, we're talking about that.
Yeah, cool. Anyway. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we're back. So yeah, D10 system, and we kind of settled on it being a like pass-fail system rather than like beating a DC. So you think of like when you play D&D, most rolls are pretty much you're rolling versus a difficulty class of some kind, whether that's the armor class of your opponent or the difficulty class of a save beating a spell DC, or beating a challenge, making a knowledge check, or whatever. So there's a lot of systems that work that way where you're just trying to get higher than that number. Whereas you have other systems like a World of Darkness systems and a few others and such where you're rolling versus a difficulty, and you count a number of successes versus your failures, right? So, for example, our base success is a 6 on a D10. Okay, good, Ellie. I was gonna say you might have to refresh because everybody else seems to be working, so we're good.
In the immortal words of text support, did you clear cache and cookies?
So let's say you have a body score of 3, right? You're going to roll 3d10 for whatever this thing is you're trying to do. For each of those you roll, any of them that roll a 6 or higher are a success. And you compare that to the number of successes you need for whatever challenge you're facing. And if you meet or beat it, then you're good. You did it. If you don't have enough successes, then you failed the challenge. This is pretty simplistic way of explaining that. And anytime we say the difficulty, it'd be the number you have to get a success on each die. But we decided on that because it's fun, it's kind of dynamic, it's a little different. But when you have things like, say for people running the game, a guideline on, like basically your challenge rating essentially for whatever the task is. Like a normal thing or an average challenge would be, maybe you need 2 successes, and a hard one would need 3, and then like. I don't know what the other tiers are and stuff like Star Wars, but like challenging would be like 4, and then daunting is like 5 or something, right?
Yeah, I don't remember what terms they use for that one either, but for my D6 one that I made, I used daunting, I believe, is the hardest one because it sounds cool.
It sounds cool, right?
My pyramid fell over.
So yeah, the way I have it ordered in our talking points.
How does a pyramid fall over?
Because it's not actually a pyramid, it's a stack of dice.
Okay.
That are arranged into a triangle shape, so I called it a pyramid.
It's one of those really tall pyramids. It's not like a base.
Right. Yeah. It wasn't sitting flat.
Like this. It was like this, and then it went like that, and I sat. Anyways, I'll put me back where I belong.
See, just a quick overview of some other stuff. We want there to be a kind of modular enemy generator, because the game doesn't have a traditional bestiary. I don't know how many of you have actually been a DM or GM of like a D&D campaign or anything like that. But that's where all the monsters come from. They're in the bestiary. You got a big old thick list of monsters, and how they behave, their stats.
A lot. So many C's. It's a third of the book, dude. Yeah. Like,
and then plus the additional bestiaries, right? So
yes, there's more than one bestiary. So
because you need more monsters.
Challenge rating actually stands for how many C's are in it. The more C's, the more challenge.
The C rating. The challenge. Yeah. The thicker the monster, the higher the challenge rating.
But yeah, so those bestiaries are pretty much where your DM, GM, storytellers, and such are going to pull monsters from, unless they're me and I just homebrew most things anyway, or I look at a monster and go, that's cool, and then tweak it and do my best to make sure it's balanced, and then throw it at people.
Yeah. And one of the reasons we wanted to do this generator was, as we were talking about trying to pass that Christmas morning test kind of thing, is we figured, what do GMs spend the most time doing, which is scouring the monster manual, trying to find things for you to fight. So if we have a cool generator that allows you to roll up and make up monsters faster, it's going to cut a lot of time and learning curve out of trying to figure out, what to build and bring against your players.
Exactly. Plus it makes the book smaller.
A lot smaller, which is also nice. A weird stated goal we had, that our player's guide and our GM's guide are a total under 500 pages, which is the size of a regular player's handbook.
Yeah.
So
that's going to be fun.
Somewhere around here. It's like 560 pages.
But that's, but having no like traditional bestiary, more like a modular system with like templates and things that you can use to generate enemies fairly easily, will save a lot of space. But also, we don't have a traditional spell list either. There is magic.
And talking about things that take up a huge chunk of the rule book and that also take up a ton of brain power, and why when people first start playing, a lot of times you tell new players to play a martial character, because choosing spells out of a spell list takes a real long time.
And it can be overwhelming for especially people who get like, analysis paralysis, or even just general choice paralysis. Yeah. Just being like, oh, I can take any of these 40 things. It's like
in our normal campaign we play here, Into the Storm, we just leveled up to level 4, and Eli got to get level 2 spells, and that took me the majority of the level up. So
spoilers, Dave. God, no
spoilers. Anyways, yeah, I got level 2 spells now. Deal with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that took me the majority of my level up. I was able to do everything else like super fast, but I had to sit there and read spells. Mm-hmm. And I've been playing Pathfinder for 10, 15. Oh my God, what is time? A really long time.
A while.
Finite.
Yeah.
Now, granted, of course, we were going into this knowing we can't please everyone, right? Because there are definitely people out there who really like that process of having just an absurd number of options to choose from, the ability to like just kind of make any sort of character and have a bunch of mechanics that support this exact build. And this is the guy who really likes that. But also,
for those of you, that's why Pathfinder and 3.5 exist and are dope.
Exactly. Like the first time I made a 5e character, I was woefully disappointed in how little I could choose from at level 1. I was like, what the fuck is this? It took
there's very
17 seconds. I'm done. What happened?
But y'all will have to show me for my character how to do spell stuff, because
speaking of the complicatedness of Pathfinder spells, Panda, you've never made a spellcaster in Pathfinder.
It'll be.
I have a spell like.
Don't worry, I can help you out, buddy. As someone who's played every single sorcerer bloodline at least once.
Once you check the little like
it's not true, but it's close
thing in the configuration on your Roll20 sheet, it'll make a lot more sense, because that's what denotes you as a spellcaster. Yeah, you don't have a spell page yet.
Okay, yeah. Look, confession time, guys. But I've never played a class that doesn't have spells in like Roll20. Like obviously I've played them before, but using Roll20 and the character sheets in Roll20, I've never played a class that doesn't have spells. So I didn't know that didn't show up on your sheet.
I really like this playlist, but the way the audio is set up, I don't get to listen to the music that's playing for the audience, and I really wish I could.
It's playing right now. Oh, that's a good song too. I just looked over at the stream to see what was playing.
Anyway,
I'm gonna unmute us to listen to the music for just a second.
Oh, that's a good song.
I can hear you say, "Oh, that's a good song." It's your mic.
It's funny.
No, but So good God, where were we? Yeah, there's no traditional spell list.
We're blocked off.
Because of the way that magic works. I know we really haven't gotten into talking about what the fuck is happening in this game.
Yeah, that's
getting
true.
There.
We're bad at presenting things, guys.
I know, right?
If this was an elevator pitch, we'd have been kicked out of the building already.
Yeah, they got off that elevator. We're like, don't talk to those guys. Nobody talked to them. I was supposed to get off 2 floors ago. They blocked the elevator door.
Yeah, they detained me in this elevator.
And I think it was an accident.
Yeah, me calling in, pulling the fire thing so the elevator stops so y'all have more time.
Yeah, kick the emergency stop button.
Yeah, we burning bridges.
But no, what happened? You're going to have to sit here in this dark elevator and listen to us give you this idea.
Yes, we have glow sticks for no reason.
We didn't plan this ahead of time at all.
Right? We spent 3 hours doing this, and I didn't think to put world building ideas before all the mechanical shit.
I know. You know what's okay? And I just want to call out a very funny thing, because when we started making this game, one of the things we said was about how we dislike how traditional RPGs tend to have you build your character, because they give you your not world building stuff first, but your class and race and all that stuff kind of first, and then they have you roll stuff. And I was like, but you don't know what to do, or they have you roll stuff and then they do that. We want to do it the other way. Excuse me, I flip flop. They have you roll. They tell you all the number stuff, and then they go, now pick a class. And you're like, but I already rolled and it doesn't go with what I want to do. And so we were like, hey, when we present it in our book, pick your stuff, then roll your stats, right? And we just did the opposite of that.
Yep.
Oh my gosh.
That's okay though. So I'm gonna say this out, and then I will explain it when I get to the world building because it'll be fairly easy. Ellie asks, "Soul, mind, body. Is it kind? Or soul that
imagining that's
affects
supposed to be
magic?
mind,
I think that's
sir.
supposed to be mind or soul that affects magic. I can see how magic could take a mental and physical toll on the caster. That is a great question. It does do both of those things, and we'll definitely get to that here in just a second because I was about to start talking a little about magic.
But then I
We
derailed.
we did do the sort of thing of dividing magic into arcane and divine, but they are very different. We really wanted them to be quite different in this, because arcane magic is like kind of categorized into elements based on, if anyone's ever looked at nerdy shit in history about like alchemy and like early medicine, they used to think that we were all based on humors, which I have a list of. 4 humors to be specific.
Yeah,
Let me go to my
melancholic,
list.
phlegmatic, choleric, and what's the other one for? It was bile.
Well, I mean, yeah,
Bile.
bile is part of them, but that's not what it's
Yeah,
called. It's,
no, you
good
had
God,
yellow
I
humor,
have
black
so
humor,
many things pulled up.
bile, and something else, and blood.
Oh.
That was the other one.
Yeah,
I remember-
melancholic, phlegmatic, choleric, sanguine.
Yeah, which
Sanguine
I was gonna
blood.
say, which were based around. You had yellow, bile, black bile, or whatever, blood and phlegm were the humors, the physical humors in your
Yeah,
body from the old
melancholic-
nerdy stuff.
Yeah, melancholic is black bile. I found the page.
Okay, yeah,
Phlegmatic is phlegm. Choleric is yellow bile, and sanguine, of course, is blood.
yeah.
And sorry, were you saying something, Panda?
No, it's fine. I was talking about how I remember from one of my ancient history classes, or one of the things that I learned was, yes, they thought that you had, they were just referred to as biles, I think, where it was you have black bile, yellow bile, red bile, is how I thought they were referred to. But yes, same
Yeah.
basic.
Good old
They are
humors.
the
And
humors. with
fun
a
thing
U.
about the humors, they also
With an extra U.
relate to the 4 phases of the moon, which is
Yep. They relate to a lot of things. Seasons.
yeah.
They relate to
4 shows
different
up a lot.
ages, planets, and elements like earth, fire, water, that kind of air, that kind of thing.
What happens when you combine them all?
You explode.
You get a
No,
person.
yeah, you get a
So-
person. That is the point. Is you get a person because you need all 4 humors
Yeah.
to be balanced in your body to be in good health, according to old like medieval physicians.
Gross Captain Planet.
Yes, very gross Captain Planet. Anything that requires you to bind phlegm and bile together is pretty gross.
Right? So, but yes, they all also relate to elements like melancholic or black bile relates to earth, phlegmatic relates to water, choleric relates to fire, and sanguine relates to air. So, that the way that came. Oh my gosh, how does one explain these things? This man wants to talk for a living. So, the concept was that in kind of, like primally, like before people existed, we were talking about like gods and stuff here. Those elements, of course, existed in a pure form. That's just the purest energy of fire, water, air, earth. The way they are translated essentially into a physical form by deities. So they turned fire into choleric humor. They turned the essence of earth energy into melancholic humor, so on and so forth. And those things are what make up people. They went from being a primal element to a humor. We also have a 5th humor called Immure, which represents like void, and it's basically like bodily as plasma, and made up a bunch of other stuff. So anyway, but they have a 5th humor instead of just the 4 that would be traditionally in ancient alchemy and medicine. But yeah, so arcane magic is pretty much all about reversing the process of turning a primal element into a humor, and instead turning a humor into a primal element. So taking doses of choleric humor and returning it to fire, right? Whereas, when we go back to the talking points, I have no organizational skills.
That's okay. I'm just rolling dice.
Whereas, wow.
That is a
No,
no.
don't. I thought Huber wrote the Iliad.
No.
That's what Panda said for the
No, yeah. For people who watch this on YouTube, anyways. No. Yes. Anyways. Don't make me go get my copy of the Iliad and hit you with it. It's falling apart. It can't stand to hit another person. It's duct taped together as is.
Ellie, it was not great. That's terrible. It's terrible.
Don't encourage him.
If no one's got my back, I know at least Ellie does. And my man, a average bear. No, Samson is the guy you're thinking of. The guy with
this whole community.
Yeah. Samson with the super long hair that if you cut it, he lost all his strength. Yeah.
Humor Samson.
Stories. Humor Samson. No.
Anyway, divine magic is based on the supernal language of the gods.
I have one more derail. Did he make the good humor bar? Keep going, Patrick, please. I'm sorry.
Fucking hell. Let's talk about the world. So fucking shit.
So this is the world. Oh, God. Somebody posted that today, by the way, on Facebook, and I was like, amazed that another human wasn't one of us who remembered. So this is the world. Yeah. Because we had just talked about that.
Let me actually
Friday?
Go find things.
Or Thursday.
Good God, I have so many tabs open. Like
same. Other sodas are
20 something.
I finally closed all the tabs on my phone because when we were standing around doing something with Crispy one day, I realized I had 67 tabs open on my phone in my browser, and I was like, I'm going to close these. I'm down to 8.
Yeah.
Which is like an achievement for me.
I'm not. Okay, so the game is going to take place on the world of Shard. And our main nation thing is called Riftreach, which is a federal oligarchy dividing its power between the ruling parties of a triumvirate. Which, Dave, explain what a triumvirate is.
A triumvirate is 3 people or 3 bodies. Sometimes it doesn't have to be people. It could be 3 organizations that constitute a ruling class, generally in the form of an oligarchy run by 3 individuals or 3 families. But obviously, meaning 3. Yeah.
Cool. Those 3 bodies are the college, the council, and the church. Those are pretty much the 3 ruling entities of Riftreach. And they are in the early stages of the equivalent of the industrial age is kind of where this takes place. Because there's going to be
I would say think turn of the 20th century, so very early 1900s, late 1800s, a level of not just technology but level of social acclimatization as well.
Yeah, and in the interest of doing shit out of order, because way before that,
way in the back past,
before there was a city or birds. There was void. There was no. Here's what we'll do. I need to show y'all the cosmos image that I has.
Cosmos. Oh yeah, it's really cool.
Since we're at the turn of the century, is there firearm development that has happened?
Yes, that was one of my things when we set this out, when I was talking to Patrick about settings, is that I wanted basically, I called them magic lock rifles, where they were kind of like bolt action rifles, but instead of firing traditional ammunition, you fired some kind of magical ammunition, but it was something that would be difficult to reload and difficult to reuse. So in essence, one of the things we kind of came up with is being able to charge humor into a ammunition into these special kinds of rifles, kind of thing.
Weaponizing humor. I'm good at that.
Yeah, there you go. Except there are not pun guns.
Oh.
Sorry.
Pun guns.
There's a way to
Yeah, unless airships, you could have like blimps in theory. Those were turn of the century airships that were usable.
Zeppelins.
So yeah, zeppelins, blimps, whatever you want to call them, those kind of things. But definitely children in coal mines. Except that not children in coal mines, because Patrick will get to why they don't have to put children in coal mines. It's dead folks in coal
mines. I will get to that.
Dead, but he'll tell you more of the nitty gritty of it.
Yeah, which is part of that all that shit about death before.
Yes.
I'm trying to figure out how to. Okay, I think I know what I'm gonna do. It's just gonna be uglyish, and we're just gonna have to live with it. Okay.
You're gonna just share your screen on the Zoom call?
Oh God, no.
Good. Is that would be real bad?
This may be jumping ahead, but is there still like unsettled lands?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
So the city is the primary area where anybody lives. There's still a lot of area that is obviously going to be like wild lands, and it's just like, turn of the 20th century America. We still had unexplored, undiscovered areas here. But if you think of like our ability to go across all of the like, jungle area in South America that, people hadn't gone to unless they, already lived there for some reason, but for forever, stuff like that, or like the Arctic. But also, Patrick will get into an interesting description of why it is difficult to go exploring across the sea and why there are probably unexplored or
charted.
At least I would say less traveled, maybe not necessarily completely unexplored, but significantly less traveled, like islands or areas across the ocean in this. But I'll let you get to that when you get to that, because we'll be way out of order if we start talking about that.
Oh yeah, I'm kind of seeing it too, Ellie. Yeah.
I mean, that's a reasonable thought. It's much more like, in that way, it's like a big city, right? That's
before I
run
answer
by,
that, Ellie said, I'm picturing Attack on Titan cities enclosed, so outsiders with magic can't penetrate the city. Continue your answer.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say it is kind of similar to that in that you are going to have city walls defense. It's not going to be like Attack on Titan size walls because we're not trying to get rid of Titans. But because the cities are run by that triumvirate of the church and the college and the council, those governmental bodies, I guess, are going to be the ones controlling what gets in and what gets out. So almost more like heavily monitored, like DMZ zone than really Attack on Titan, if you think about it that way, where you're going to have strict checkpoints for people to get in and out.
Because there's not Titans, right? But you can't have outsiders with magic. That can definitely happen. Okay, so yeah, you guys should be able to see this all-encompassing image.
Hey,
logo,
so this is the universe.
But no, let me put it above our
instead of the world.
Yes, this is the entire cosmos. Can you guys read that? I don't have a good idea of what the size of stuff is.
So I can read everything pretty easily except for the tiny not ring of chaos. But I know what it says, obviously, but that's difficult for me to read on a regular screen.
Are we talking
on a
about
phone, it would be nigh impossible.
Yeah, it's pretty tough on the phone.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, since I have no way to indicate from the chat, I will just describe. So obviously the center, I'll just describe it since I know reading it's pretty difficult for the smaller text. I didn't make this really to present to like a group. I was just like, Dave, this is what I was thinking. So center there obviously is creation. That is the realms in which all like mortals reside. This is the physical world built out of the basically constructed by the word of the deities. This is where primal forces become the humors, right? You can still have fire and things that isn't in humor form, but like the raw purest form of it, basically your magical form of it, doesn't exist unless drawn out of the humors here. And those humors, of course, are also what make up mind, body, soul of mortal creatures. That little reddish, stormy ring separating creation from the unknown is the first ring of chaos. And I know if there's any 40k stands that aren't Dave, because we've been over this, but they're going to be like, oh yeah, chaos, I know what that is. We're going to call it something different eventually. It's just, for now, it's chaos. Because chaos borders all the different things, right? The first ring of chaos is called the Dream Ring, because oh yeah, sorry, my log line for what chaos is, it is where potential and opportunity have no outlet. Anyway,
good one.
So the first ring is between creation and the unknown, and it is called the Dream Ring, and that ring is filled with basically the limits of imagination, dreams, nightmares, and it's also where like things like prophecy can exist. But that is, it is what it is. I just said it. It's where dreams and imagination and stuff comes from. You move out of the Dream Ring, or the first ring of chaos, into the unknown. The unknown is pretty much what everyone would be afraid of. This is a place for the like forgotten and the undiscovered by any incapable mind. You can almost think of it as a more finite version of how, if you watch Into the Storm or are a part of any of my Hyeth campaigns, of what Mishani's realm or the Hollow Archive is described. Of this, like, it is where unknown, like things that are otherwise unknown exist. But the difference being that, like, there's not like a thing, there's not an entity that rules over this realm that controls it and lets things in or out. It's just anything that crosses over into the unknown can never return. It is gone, right? Which includes gods. So they don't go into the unknown. They want to avoid the unknown, right? That's actually what will kill a deity, is just being totally forgotten. That's how one crosses into the unknown, is being forgotten. So yeah.
Deities kind of like not whole purpose, but a lot of their motivation and the way they do things is to not do that.
Yeah. The reason they created mortals,
yeah,
is to not slip into the unknown. Second ring of chaos is called the Eldritch Ring, and that ring is filled with not the unknown, but the unknowable, and things that a mortal mind or soul can't contain or comprehend. Like knowledge and then power, and just like even concepts that exist in the second ring of chaos would break a mortal mind into insanity.
Very Arkham-esque in that case.
Yeah, exactly. You can kind of think of this sort of as our like our Far Realm, our Lovecraftian almost type ring of existence here. Where it's just like shit. If you learn shit from the Eldritch Ring, you're not supposed to know that. You will be changed, right? And then of course we have the Beyond. It's all sparkly. Beyond lies outside of creation and outside of the unknown. It is forever out of the reach of mortals, alighted only once the physical ties and corporeal forms are shed. There is no return through the seas of chaos and unknown once you enter the Beyond. And then, of course, outside of Beyond is the theoretical outer chaos, which could be anything. It could even be a boat.
Even to be a boat. Yeah, I knew I was going to say that. Beat you to it.
Oh, I've missed some chat things. Let's see. Ellie's the most vocal here. She says, the city gets attacked by a pirate Zeppelin ship using pun guns and rappelling down the ropes. That was inconsequential. Shudders to think what monsters lurk out there. Yeah, monsters are just bad. And then she says that increases their desire to war for religion, spreading their memories so that they won't be forgotten. Yes. Do the gods work together as a pantheon, or do they fight each other? Great question. Let me get back to
6 and 1, half dozen the other.
6 1/2 of the other indeed. I know I didn't actually say English there or words.
English words. Wordles.
So I gotta get back.
Words or Pokemon?
Where?
I mean, I guess
the
they are. Unknown or
information
Pokemon.
is. Nope, not that one. Oh, I have this open twice. Close that one. Where is the stuff about the deities? Heritage. Nope, not this page. Man, this flows so seamlessly. Holy shit.
So cold.
Where is the page about the fucking deities? That ain't it either. Oh, more world stuff. Here it is.
There you go. Yeah, I was gonna say now I'm gonna have to start trying to find it.
I have so many tabs open I can't see the names of them, so I just have to click through each of them.
Right. Yeah.
For another Panda wordism that I used to have.
Wordism.
The fierce deity mask from Zelda. I didn't know what a deity was, so I called it deity.
Deity.
I knew a lot of kids who called it
deity. Yeah.
Deity. Yep.
Fierce deity mask.
I know a lot of kids who did that. I also know a lot of kids who said physic instead of psychic.
Mm-hmm. So yes. So the gods, more recent development. So forgive me when this is obviously going to be scatterbrained. I wanted to differentiate them a bit from like D&D gods, or even just like real world, like polytheistic pantheons where deities are like people, but they're just better. You know?
Yeah.
I wanted the deities
of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted the deities to be more like, to be more distant, to be more like cosmic forces. So we basically have 3 sets of deities. There are deities of the body, the mind, and the soul. And they are embodied in different ways, right? So the deities of the body are literally planets in this like solar system. You have Eos, Latum, and Shevin. And those are the deities of the body. And I kind of, in our notes, sort of describe them as being almost more like machines than like knowing communicative entities. They work. They have specific goals that they work towards. They do specific things, and you can be granted power by doing specific things. It's not a pray to them and be judged worthy kind of thing. Eos is the deity of strength, commonly linked with earth. Latum is the deity of vitality, commonly linked with water. Shevin, deity of speed, commonly linked with air. Then you have your deities of the mind. I'm not going into super detail on them right now. I'm just kind of giving an overview. Are represented more by, or embodied more by, energies. Where like heat, light, motion, and magic, that kind of thing. You have the sage, the sigil, and the sovereign. The sage is the deity of knowledge. The sigil is, in my notes, it still says cunning because I haven't come up with a better thing, but I'm just going to for now say the deity of magic, essentially. And the sovereign is the deity of illumination, not just light, but like enlightenment of learning the truth of things, right? Excuse me. And then we have the deities of the soul, which I will go into a bit more detail on. You have Unicus, which is basically the deity of completion, is creation, in a sense. It is Unicus is basically the whole solar system that everything exists in. What are you making that face for, Dave?
Because I was looking at what Panda was doing. I was trying to figure out what he was doing. I was confused. Sorry.
It's like Harley getting confused with
like, what's this? What's he playing with?
So, yeah, that is a cosmic presence that just kind of permeates all of the other ones. It's where all of the planets are contained, all these energies are contained, that sort of thing. And then The other deity of the soul, there's only two, is called the crowd. And the crowd is essentially a collection of many voices, and it basically where all of the unassigned souls throughout the cosmos exist. Sorry, were you about to say something, Dave?
Oh, I just said the crowd's my favorite, I think.
Oh, yeah. uh, it's like all the errant souls and things that aren't in mortal form that are, but they still are. They're still driven, right? Like they still want things. They want stimulus, entertainment. They want to like do, create, know. That they still have that push that mortals have. And
drive is a concept as well that we're gonna have to talk about.
Yes, they introduced the concept of drive, which is going to be both a force and a mechanic in our game. A lot of that stuff that in my little pre-recorded thing, talking about death being close to shard, is that is a truth of this world. Is that unlike now where you have to be just like brutalized, or you have to be old to die or whatever. People on shard that lose all of their drive die. And those husks, especially if they're not too damaged to move, can still be commanded. They're essentially zombies. They're undead, right? But that's how close to death this world is, right? It's just like if you just lose all motivation for long enough, eventually you just stop. Your soul just leaves. Your soul joins the crowd into all the others seeking a spark, something else, something besides whatever monotony you were stuck in, right? Until eventually you are reassigned. But that means that there is a potential surplus of dead people that can be given orders. Part of this is a little bit of this is on the fly. We didn't really talk about this, but Dave,
yeah,
I think
why you don't need kids for the coal mines, but
right, exactly. But the idea that just like pretty much any dead person is undead is kind of interesting to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like if they're not too like if you die of old age, obviously like your body is not going to function, or if you're like crushed by an elephant or something, that's not going to be useful.
Yeah.
But
it's not a useful bag of bones there.
Yeah, right. Without someone else fixing it, right? Which is a thing. Ellie says, "Shit, zombie husks, I dig it." And then Panda is typed, "Grandpa died, send him to the mines."
Exactly. But one of the things we definitely talked about in building a world where your primary enemy is undead is we're going to have a lot of Dr. Frankenstein-esque people as well, creating like weird flesh golems and amalgams of things and
Frankenstein.
Whatever. Yeah, so, it's pronounced Frankenstein. For those of you who watch Young Frankenstein as many times as I have.
So undead are very prevalent and are used as a source of labor. That's why they're kind of all over the place. And it's important to the economy that they exist. And eventually they break down or whatever. It's some people's jobs to, yes, make amalgams of them and sew some of them back together and replace parts on them and that kind of thing so they can keep working. It's less taboo here in this world because it's already been the norm for long enough, but also whatever the understood cosmic connection is, people know that the soul is gone out of these things, which is why they are undead, right?
So there's less of a moral ambiguity about shackling a body that no longer requires or no longer has a soul to function in it.
Exactly.
There's obviously going to be some people in the world who have problems with this, thus creating conflict. Mm-hmm. But, as a societal thing, everybody's pretty on board.
That reminds me a lot of Altered Carbon, which is a show on Netflix.
It was a pretty good show. We watched that together, didn't we?
I told you about that, Patrick, where they find this device where they basically at birth implant it in your vertebrae that stores your consciousness. So if you would, say, get shot in the heart, they can basically pull you out of that body and put you in another body.
As long as that device isn't destroyed.
Yeah, basically.
But in this case, there's there's no easy putting people back in, right? It's not something that people have understood how to do. It is theoretically something you can tamper with. One thing also that you may have noticed as Patrick was describing this, we have a lot of 3s. Not just for ease of simplicity, but also because it makes stuff fit, right? You have mind, body, soul, and then we have 3 primary things of government that correspond primarily to mind, body, and soul, right? Like the college corresponds to your mind, the council is more body, and the soul is more the church, right? And those things are governed and control and tend to deal with that. And our classes break down into a lot of 3s too. So there's a lot of, in the way our subclasses and everything work. So mechanically speaking, we've got a lot of 3s and 5s.
Yeah, do you see that question?
Exactly. Ellie says, how many parts are needed for a ghost husk? Could somebody split a body in half and put steampunk shit to fill in what's missing? Boom, 2 potential husks. Probably, yeah.
In theory, you could, yeah.
Right?
I mean, I'd say the most basic part of that sounds like having a hook hand or a prosthetic leg or something.
Yeah.
You know,
but I would say you would need a large substantive amount of the body in theory. You couldn't get away with like taking a hand and imbuing soul into you can't make thing from the Addams Family, right. Because
or
there's not enough.
Like it's not
it's not going to be functional or like it won't have cognitive function that is applicable to what you're trying to do.
Exactly.
But
and then
you definitely think like for those people who are 40K fans like me or whatever, you could very much make servitors essentially, which are mind scoured humans. They don't have brain function anymore, but they work off of things called doctrina wafers, which are basically just programs, right? But their bodies are largely augmented with mechanical things to make them do whatever task you need them to do. You build servitors specifically to dig. You build servitors specifically to move pallets, right? And so you take a body and then you put all kinds of mechanical augments on it to make it better at doing that thing, and then you just basically stick a computer chip in its brain to fire its synapses to make its body do the thing. And that's kind of what undead do in this culture a lot.
Yeah. That's going to be one of my questions is like, could you in theory have like a autopilot for like, or a cruise control for a carriage or something like that? That's basically just most of a body hooked up to it to drive a carriage for you.
So my basic idea, and I'm still thinking about Ellie's question about bisecting a body. I think I'm gonna call it a ruling. The way I'd rule that is
you'll call it a ruling.
If you cut a body in half and then hook shit up to both of them, I feel like only one half is actually going to function. Like you can if you rig up enough shit that it'll just like move parts and whatever, then sure, that's fine. But it wouldn't be otherwise self-driven like most undead would be. Like one half will remain a zombie that can propel itself and the other won't. And that's because conceptually the reason why dead people can take orders is because essentially you are giving them by giving them an order, you are giving them drive, but only in one direction. They don't have any other ability to process it other than just to go with it. They don't have a soul to filter out wants, needs, desires, or experiences. None of that kind of shit.
They still require enough of a brain, realistically, to have cognitive function to understand the task you've given them.
Yes. Yeah, like literally like zombies. Like they still have to have a brain. So, or you have to like just rig a bunch of shit up and they'll maybe be semi-functional. But yeah.
So to answer your question, I think you maybe driving a coach might be a little bit too complex, Panda, because these things are not necessarily capable of handling super complicated tasks. Like coach driving requires a lot of decision making, but operating something like a train engine where all you had to do was, let's say, fill the coal and make sure to pull the handbrake when you're supposed to, that could be easily done by them to make it almost automated. You would still have somebody oversee them to like come in and do whatever, or if they stop working, or if there's a problem with the train. But very much like how a train now runs pretty much automated, except that you have a guy in there to push buttons. It's the same concept. Like the guy in there to push buttons is there to make sure that the undead don't mess up.
Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a lot of where the undead play into this, right? Let's see, what should we talk about next as far as that goes? Yeah, I didn't actually get into how divine magic worked at all. So
Sorry, got super derailed there.
yeah, because I was like, I have to explain this for that to matter.
Have to explain this to explain this to explain this. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way that the gods bound the primal elements into the humors to create mortals, to create worlds, all that other stuff, as a part of their process was through their words, right? And we just call it the supernal language. Long story short, pretty much what happens is the supernal, like something with the supernal language written on it. Hey, welcome the demon Kara 148. Hello.
Yeah.
Don't be a
Hello,
bot.
Don't be a bot.
But
I wanna
something
see
like
what
like a slab or a monolith or something with the supernal language on it is discovered. And when people attempt to speak this, or try to speak this, I just whacked something. Try to speak this, it basically just melts their brains. It's powerful shit. It is basically the crux of creation. It is distilled magic, that kind of thing. Like, it is how all the shit was created, right? So you can't just like speak the supernal words and everything is good. To answer the decomposition, yes, they do decompose, but only because they can't do things like eat and whatever. Like, you're still going to wear out and they're not recovering anymore.
Yeah, because it's essentially, if you think about it this way, it's if you just took a body and turned all of your higher brain functions off and had that thing run, it's not going to decompose yet because it's still a living body, right? It just is functionally undead in the case that there is no higher brain functions. And in this case, there's no soul in the body at all.
Yeah.
But for example purposes, is the body will then continue to function. And if you don't take care of that body, then yes, it will decay and it will have bad things because it's not being cared for. Yeah. Just like your body would get, bed sores if you were in a coma and nobody flipped you. Same kind of thing.
Exactly. A suggestion for the magic system: the demon Kara. I'm interested. But while I'm waiting for the chat to catch up to that,
could we create a text channel in the Discord that could be TTRPG? Well, I'm not sure what you're calling. Yes, something like that, where we could post that.
You mean the TTRPG talk that's already there?
Okay, yeah.
You mean the channel that's already in the Discord? Yeah. You act like he wasn't somewhat prepared for this, which is significantly prepared for the average person.
I was more thinking about this specific thing y'all are working on, but yeah.
Let's see.
We could make a shard talk or whatever.
Yeah.
Since we don't have a name yet, but shard is the name of the world, so in our several different breakdowns of game design document notes that we have, it just says unnamed a bunch of times where the title is supposed to go.
Right. Okay. I renamed it so that way it's got an actual thing.
I see.
So you can't just speak the supernal language, right? You'll explode. So people begin to study it, meditate on it, and start to try and say parts of the words that they glean. And in even getting some of these words out, it draws forth great power. Excuse me. It's like crazy amounts of power just from like little pieces of it and such, right? So people begin to go, oh man, we can perform miracles with this. We just have to dedicate ourselves to learning these words and to like meditating on them and like they kind of developing this entire system around it. And this is way back when this happened. When we get to like modern times, that is how divine magic works, is your clerics, their equivalents and whatnot would have chosen like specific words, like supernal words, to devote themselves to and to study and to try. They're kind of dedicating themselves to eventually being able to speak the entire thing, by like essentially attuning their bodies and minds and souls to it. And as they gain spells and such, it's literally just different parts of this that they can speak into existence.
And if you want like a comparable thing, I guess, to kind of help wrap your brain around it, it's very similar to in Skyrim, how you learn words of power as a Dovahkiin to do cool things, but only in the concept that you need to know parts of words and then you can learn more of words to increase power of what you're doing, kind of. But it's still not totally, it's not even at all one-to-one, but it's still not the best example, but it's the only thing I can think of that like not everybody, but most people would know that uses words as that core component of being able to do some magical ability.
Demon Chara. Okay, so imagine the magic system that's just like dark magic in Dragon Prince, but less dark. I am not familiar with Dragon Prince.
It's a show on Netflix.
I'm not familiar with that either.
With it.
Yeah. If that's what I'm remembering, yes. Again, it's basically what I posted. I watched it. I'm not super familiar with it. The show is interesting. I just didn't watch a lot of it. So very have to
show. What I mean, basically take parts from living things like a thorax of a fire spider.
So
I'm gonna check my imaginary watch by looking at the clock and say we are close to break time though. So whatever we start
materials,
let's not
or components,
whatever, because I will have to pee.
Fair enough. So there's a little bit of that because
yes.
Right out of it. Yeah, that makes sense. So because magic is based on humors that exist in the bodies of people, there is a little bit of that. Like the way to get these humors is from bodies, right? Anyway, so let me finish that explanation so I don't trail off too hard. So yeah, divine magic is based on devoting oneself to studying the supernal language and being able to speak it and draw forth the power of the gods, essentially. What people in their ingenuity figured out is, I'm going to present it the way that I said it to Dave the other day, is they're just like, all right, the gods turn primal energy from primal energy into the humors by speaking this language, right? So if we just say it backwards, then that'll turn it from humors into primal energy. And all the devoted religious people studying these words were like, that's fucking dumb. You're stupid. Don't do that.
Also, that's heresy.
But it worked.
Heresy. Yeah, of course.
So, literally, arcane magic is using the supernal language, but going backwards. Because you're not speaking the actual supernal language, you're speaking it backwards, and that effectively undoes what those words did. Instead of turning primal energy into humors, turns humors into primal energy, and the college forms essentially around learning about building nuance around that on how to actually then control that in reverse. So yeah, no care. I'm not Demon Kara. I'm not stopping everything. All right, hey, you've had your run of the show.
Yeah. One thing I was to say we talked about for spellcasting is if you don't have humors outside of your body, you then end up having to use the ones in your body. And I don't know if you guys know this, you need blood. Yeah. It's pretty important. It's real bad if you use all your blood to cast something. And so that's why, talking about needing humors and bodies and whatever, is harvesting these humors from people, whether donated willingly or not, is a large way that they have been able to do magic research in the college.
Y'all didn't know what that word meant. I had to Google it as well in chat for you.
Is this
yes.
But no, we are not actually going to write a supernal language.
God, no.
We don't have that skill. None of us are Tolkien.
Nope.
But the supernal language will exist in fantasy. I wish we were that skilled.
Yeah, I can
look at the enthusiasm just drip just immediately deluge
okay.
out of them.
Oh,
you guys are
lame.
lame. I see.
Like, but about yeah.
Well, yeah.
But no, we're not that cool. We're
You haven't seen me at my lamest.
At your lamest? Is that what you just said? Oh
My
no,
favorite's
sir.
the
I
7.
assure you, I have no.
Right. But yeah, no. That so there is this element of like magic does come from harvesting body parts in a way. And yeah, there's some risk and reward, and I guess we'll need to take our break soon. But since we're talking about risk and reward, and we're talking about magic, I guess the next thing we can come back to is we'll talk about the evil deities.
Ooh,
I think that's interesting.
I love a good risk and reward evil deity strategy. As some of you.
Some of us definitely know, Mr. I rolled my eye out of my head.
Yeah, as some of you who play Pathfinder with me on Thursdays are familiar with.
So as we kind of come up to that time, I don't know. Let's it's a good enough stopping point.
Let's take a quick one.
Yeah,
because I really gotta pee.
We'll just come back at 5 after. So 10:35 for us on Central Time.
Yeah, grab your drinks, grab your snacks, grab your notebook to take notes and give us suggestions.
Right? Give everybody time to chit chat or run off, use the bathroom, get a drink, whatever.
Is the Panzerschreck technically a rocket propelled grenade, though?
I would say so.
I don't know.
Well, I don't know either. That's why I was asking. Because
all right, somebody's flexing in the chat. We're going to the away screen.
Away screen.
Back on screen.
But
Welcome.
Well,
we're here.
It's a little late because I ate a thing, and then I realized as I sat back down that I had not gotten anything to drink at all.
I had a bun of the honey variety.
Let's pretend that what's in this cup is Shasta.
To continue our drive to get Shasta to pay attention to us. Yeah. That's why I put my energy drink carefully off screen, whereas I always put the Shasta carefully on screen.
You mean your Diet Shasta energy?
Yeah, that's what it is. You know it.
No,
But I'm gonna take a sip from while completely covering.
I hadn't already written something on the bottom of my coffee cup. I would write, "This is Shasta" on the bottom.
Oh man, I'm jealous. Red bean buns are super good. But yes, Ellie, to answer your questions about, or your comments about if this could be very dark or if this could be twisted into darkness. Yeah, as Dave said, this was initially intended to be kind of dark.
Was it?
Mm-hmm. In fact, a lot of the inspiration that I took is from a web novel called Twig by Wildbow, one of my favorite authors. And man, that's a lot darker than this, but boy, is it good.
When we set out, like conceptually too, one of the things I looked at was Industrial Revolution, turn of the 20th century, like America and Europe, and some pretty dark places.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of jacked up stuff happening at that point in history. And to try and incorporate that into this as well, like the geopolitical just instability and complete changing of the world created very hellish conditions in a lot of places, and trying to apply that to a RPG seemed cool.
Certainly did. So one of the things that we were talking about yesterday was the fact that both of us really love risk versus reward and the ability to like kind of push your luck and risk a lot to gain a lot and that kind of thing, right?
Push your luck mechanics are dope.
So that is going to be a thing you can do in this game, at least conceptually right now. We want you to be able to like push rolls. Like if you fail a roll, you can like describe how you try to put that little bit of extra into it. Roll again. If you fail, it's worse, obviously. But if you succeed, cool, you succeeded. Which if anybody's played Call of Cthulhu, that's a mechanic in that system. No. What we were going to talk a little bit about now, Call of Cthulhu is fun. So is Delta Green.
From everything you said about Delta Green, it seems really fun.
Oh, it's great. It's great. I'm having a blast.
Delta Green's D100, right? We talked about that.
Yes. Yeah, it's D100.
D100.
System.
See, we're using D10s, not to be confused with the D100 system.
Yes.
They're two very different things.
My endeavors so far in Delta Green have been great because I am really, really fucking good at a few things. And I've so far mostly managed to only have to roll those things. So, yeah. Well, yeah, of course we do. But anyway.
I do really like D100 systems as well, though. They're very entertaining. I played a lot of Dark Heresy, which was the Warhammer 40k roleplay by Fantasy Flight that used the D100 system, and I liked that a lot. So,
right. I don't think James is watching. Molly, I don't think he is.
Yeah, you don't gotta brown nose him when he's not here. Send him a message and brown nose him.
We're always like, oh, you're the best DM in the world, in the universe. You're the greatest, and he hates it. He fucking hates it.
I too am uncomfortable with praise, so I get it.
Panda, who has never met him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, top 3 live for sure. No,
that was in reference to Molly's. Yes, because I've had you, Hyperphase, and a average bear.
I'll take it.
Top 3 of all 3.
Yeah. He is one of the DMs of all time.
DM'd a campaign for you once.
Did he? Oh, he did. Top 4.
There you go. Cool. Throwing shade at Rob, even if you can't see
it.
the shade coming.
Well, he didn't say who else was in the top 3. Just
That's true.
I ended his list.
Yeah, Ellie, we will. She says, I never got the hang of balancing encounters and haven't done much DMing, but I'd love to play test this when it's ready. We will definitely need play testing once we get to that stage.
And people who have not had experience DMing and balancing encounters are part of the people we're aiming this game at. So
exactly.
Yeah, people who are in our Discord will have first shot at playtests as well. So join that Discord if you haven't already, because those are going to be the people we give first whack at this too.
Heck yeah.
Posting Discord link. Nope, I've copied something else. It's the definition of that word that was said earlier that I'm not going to try and say.
Conlingers?
Yeah, that one.
I'm not even looking at it. I'm just trying to go off memory. But yes, speaking of risk versus reward, this was the other thing that we talked about in regards to that, is there are evil deities as well. Just like 3s go into a lot of things. I'm toying with the idea of 4 being kind of the devil's number, in a way, like it's kind of the unlucky number or whatever. Because all of the evil deities, of which there's 4, have 4 letters in their name. Excuse me. But they are never... Basically, like, people of, like, Rift Reach won't call the deities by the name that only has 4 letters. They've added additional... Like, they've changed their name to have different letters than 4. So
they're superstitious about
you have Etro, or Ethro, if you're trying to add another letter. Who is the Unshaped. And
I was going to say, another common thing from the people would also be to use that title instead of the name, because as we know, names give things power. Names make it real, and people are afraid of names, so they use titles.
Exactly.
But sorry, continue.
Etro is a cosmic. They're all referred to as cosmic presences, because they're unlike the other deities, are not like a planet or an energy, or they're just like an entity that exists in in like creation somewhere, without like a physical form. There's 5 humors in this world.
Yeah,
we have a 5th humor. Ellie was asking if 4 humors was auspicious, but there's a 5th.
Bodily plasma is your 5th one,
which we named Immure. I don't remember where I came up with that, but
I don't either, because I asked you the same question.
there was something behind it, and I forgot, so it wasn't that important apparently.
Bodily plasma, not to be confused with plasma, the state of matter. There are 4 states of matter,
yes.
And that one would be very different, and the world would be a very different place if it was the state of matter plasma. But it is not.
The Unshaped is a cosmic presence that is fascinated with flesh and viscera. And without just like reading the entire blurb thingy, it kind of creates this urge to like brutalize or self-mutilate or even cannibalize bodies. I describe a lot in my notes and such that one can make contact with these entities, and that making contact with them is how they begin to corrupt you. And basically rooting around in flesh
is the last one.
You said what?
Oh, she was asking about the elements, and I said void. Void is what lines up with plasma and immure.
Yeah, void is immure. Yeah.
Yep. Sorry, I was just answering the chat. I should have just typed it, but
that's fine. But like messing around with flesh, like rooting around in flesh, cutting and just messing around in people's bodies or taking guts out, that kind of thing. The more you do that, especially in like singular sittings and things, there is a chance that your mind could touch the entity known as Etro. And the fascination with the macabre and the viscera and stuff can become much more extreme. You begin to have the urge to like create these odd, formless monstrosities and the like, or even become one yourself, like turning yourself into one. And one of the, I called them paths to power sort of in the game, is you could be the Maestro class, which essentially is you control a bunch of undead as your way of dealing with problems or coming up with solutions to puzzles or whatever, or fighting for you. That you're kind of a crafter of them and you can augment them and that sort of thing, but you mess around a lot with bodies, right? Then of course, like, other people, of course, like surgeons and whatnot would too. But it's a thing that you have to be very careful about.
Whereas then you get also the far other side of that, where people who are directly doing that for like a sadistic purpose, like say a serial killer, and they're much more likely to have their mind touched by this this being, this presence, because of the like reckless abandon with which they do this.
Yeah. And so like both mechanically and thematically, like generally speaking, like a surgeon or a doctor or something isn't really at much risk, because it's just not going to, that volume of doing this isn't super high, right? Well, shit. Dave, your dad was a surgeon. How many surgeries might he do in a day?
So when my dad worked in the ER,
like
let's
invasive
say,
ones, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna say.
Not
like,
just...
probably 5, but those weren't even like crazy invasive. It was mostly like the highest, like I want to say the highest level. The average level of stuff, it's all outpatient, would be something like pulling something out of somebody, like a fish hook or a piece of metal. So very rarely would he have to cut somebody open to get into a thing. Usually it was just to pull something out. That's not supposed to be primarily people go to the ER because a thing is in their body that is not supposed to be in their body. Right. How it got there is different and up to interpretation, but that is why people go to the ER.
Right, exactly. So like a surgeon wouldn't necessarily be at super high risk just because they aren't constantly just like, opening people up and pulling out organs and blah, 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 blah. Oh my goodness.
Yes, in their butt. That did happen. They have a butt box.
How quickly you clicked
Every ER, I shit you not, every ER has a butt box. Every single one. People think it's a joke.
Don't go to rotten.com.
No, don't ever. But yes, they really do. Because my dad told me about the butt box at whatever that hospital was, Stroud. That's where he was an ER doc.
But yeah, so like generally, like even people who work with like messing with flesh a lot or whatever, like a mortician even or something like that, isn't at high risk to make contact with Etro. It's more if like you're going well above like the normal of it. It's one of those things that people are very suspicious or superstitious of, right? People that work in flesh a lot are typically going to have, or it's going to probably be demanded of them that they take time away from these things periodically to not risk it.
Yeah. Is this limited strictly to human bodies, or are there people like, for example, I assume there are livestock and things like that.
Right. Your mind went the same place my mind went about like butchers and things like that as well.
Yes.
Honestly, I don't think it is just human bodies. I think that's probably just more likely. right?
I would say it's one of those things that, like, if let's say every time you did something with a human body, it was 2%. Every time you did something with like an animal, it's probably a significantly smaller than 2% chance. It's like a 0.5% or whatever, right?
Like, I feel like you'd have to already pretty much be at the stage where you're mutilating animals for the shits and giggles of it for that to like trigger anything.
Not like cleaning a deer that you shot or doing taxidermy on a squirrel or whatever. It's this extra level of like sadism that is required to like touch this entity.
Yeah, exactly. Especially something that is like you. Yeah. Right?
Yes. Like cutting open a being and bathing them in the substance of their unborn and then cooking fried chicken.
Yeah, fried chicken. Exactly. Like I knew where you're going with that the second you said it. Egg washing
chicken omelet.
No, but yeah, but part of it is because for Etro specifically too, is it has the cannibalization and brutalization aspect of it more than just rooting around in a body, right?
Yes.
It's got this extra level of like malefic, almost like urge to it that's not simple, So that's why you were saying is that surgeons are less likely to deal with that because they're not going in there to like they're trying to reset things, but they're still at risk, but not as nearly as high of a risk as somebody else.
They are. I would say like just kind of for the iceberg thing here. Your general populace is much more worried about it than they are at risk, right?
As with most things like negative or detrimental, people tend to get far more worried about it than they are ever going to experience it.
Which always does bring up a good question.
Go ahead.
Are animal husks like the mechanism reusing of bodies? Like, can you
horse
make
husks pulling carriages?
Yeah.
Dude, hell yeah.
Yeah. 100%.
Okay.
All
absolutely.
Day.
Well, because I think
curious because
right. It's a great question.
So one of the things so as we talked about with drive, right? Drive is the mechanic to get you going. Animals drive is just living, right? They're very simple. They don't lose drive, generally speaking, but they could. But what you would do then, instead of doing this, is you would be able to take an animal that has died and you would be able to artificially pump drive into it, essentially, to give it orders, to get its body to do things, because it doesn't lose drive in the same way a human does, because animals' entire purpose for existing is eating, living, and having sex.
Right.
So that's reproducing, but that's all they do and that's all they care about. So they're not going to lose drive like a human would. So if you can artificially pump drive into a corpse, you can you can animate it.
Which would essentially be through humors.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. That's their fuel.
So that's
how
you would
gotta jumpstart them with a
think almost
with a cocktail
like you
of
had like horse bodies that had like injectors with humor vials on them, and that as they started to slow down or whatever, you would depress one of those injectors and boop, and then it like kicks up and starts going.
Yeah, gotta refuel my horse.
Constantly refill those humor injectors, and then you've got a horse that's never gonna get tired and it's never gonna stop.
Yeah,
until it literally falls apart.
Yeah, and I imagine it may not even be the thing where you have to have like unless you're like a really long trip, right? You won't necessarily even have to have like a harness and thing. You might just have some vials or whatever that you go and inject it in. Like they probably last a long time, right? Just to give it this sense of what it's supposed to do, and then once you give it the order, it goes. It's like diesel almost. Once it gets going, it's going for a while.
Address the Artex comment in our chat, because that is the saddest 8-year-old me ever was in my entire life. So I'm not going to address that. I love the Neverending Story. I'm just not going to address this. We're going to move on.
God. I grew up on a farm where I had to move a donkey corpse, so like I was exposed to that in real life real soon. So
but yes, there will be animal husks for sure. But yeah, we've dwelled on Etro for a while. Etro/Ethro/ the Unshaped.
The Unshaped.
Gross, macabre, unidentifiable monster creating being.
Buffalo Bill and Etro would have been good friends.
I think of I think of the massive limbs like enemies in Elden Ring.
That is a good example of the kind of monstrosities that would be created.
Yeah,
as long as it's not the hands. Get those hands away from me.
Yeah, those hands are too big.
I hate them so much.
I got so many fingers.
So the next one is Urim, Urim.
Oh, okay.
Urim. Or
Not
Urim.
what you were thinking.
I might go with Urim. Urim. Or Urimoth, the Den of Screams. And that is the primary concern of arcane researchers and prominent invokers. Invokers are pretty much what we call casters. It says, as one's mind expands, it becomes more and more likely to make contact with Urimoth. When channeling high-mark spells, high-level spells, I'm glad I spelled that too, Ellie.
Yeah, me too.
When channeling high-mark spells, this contact can be made and must be resisted. Urimoth is corruption of the mind and drives people mad. A sign of Urimoth's corruption is that the victim loses the ability to understand any language and speaks only in a frantic and forgotten tongue. This is dangerous because it also sometimes invokes unseen spells and powers. Basically, normally, like a regular person is almost never going to be super worried about Urimoth. They're probably worried that some mage from the college is affected by Urimoth and is going to just drop a nuke on the city.
Yeah.
So, going back to the risk reward thing, I was talking about paths to power, right? Being a maestro or something. What we were thinking is pretty much at low levels, you probably really you don't have the capabilities to do enough to really truly be at risk of dealing with any of these evil deities, right? At first level, Etro is talked about. It's something you, in character, RP-wise, are probably taking precautions against, but you're at no risk. Almost no risk. Just by using your own abilities of touching the mind of Etro. Urim, likewise, as a early invoker, you don't have access to high mark enough spells. You don't have enough humors. You don't have enough knowledge to use them to potentially expand your mind enough to make contact with this eldritch deity that is a den of screams. But as you get more powerful, thank you, Dave. That becomes much more of a risk. Channeling more powerful forms of primal energy and such makes that more and more possible. So it's a thing as you get stronger, you have more much higher capabilities, but there are these drawbacks, not necessarily drawbacks, but just risks involved with doing it. You can't just go around slinging your highest mark abilities because I'm that dude, right? Sure you can, but when you start trying to talk to people and they don't understand what the fuck you're saying, and then suddenly something explodes, oh shit, that's a thing I have to deal with immediately because I am already going crazy, apparently. So, Urim is the kind of risk for the path to power through the arcane, but it does also potentially lend itself toward divine casters as well, because that's still power kind of beyond your form that you're channeling. Not as much to say about that one because it's a lot more specific, but I do like it. The next one is
certainly the deity that my Thursday campaign character would run into.
Well, it's basically any of your characters would be at most risk by that one.
Shut up. I mean, you're right. Shut up. But look, Ren especially. This is
absolutely
jam.
So is there you don't need to go to them learning schools because you're going to be at risk, blah, blah, blah.
There's humans, so yes.
Absolutely.
Have you met humans?
After this, we'll talk about the college, church, and council relationship.
Balance between the three of them. Yeah. It's a very love-hate relationship balance.
It's a relationship of necessity for sure.
Yeah. Is it a rock, paper, scissors format where the church beats the school and then the church? No.
It is not.
Ellie asks, so once again, these gods are unaware of humans, so when a person takes a peek into the beyond, that the god isn't actively enticing. It's not that they're not aware of humans. They did create them. It's just that they're not necessarily paying attention to us, right? They're not sitting there going, these are my followers. They made people. They have systems in place that grant people power in order to do things so that their belief remains, but they otherwise really don't interact with us directly. So they're not sitting there watching us and seeing what we do.
And playing The Sims.
Well, unaware of humans the way a person is unaware of an anthill. Sure. Kind of. It's just, the relationship is a little different than that. They do need us. So really the only concern they have with us is that we're still alive and that we haven't rejected them.
So like bees? Bees, if honey was the life-giving substance.
I mean,
sure.
kind of.
I feel like I'm losing the plot on some of these metaphors.
Yeah,
sorry.
I feel like bees have a greater potential to harm us than we have potential to harm.
If humans created bees because bees were because honey was our only source of food, then yes, right? Except then we would have much more oversight over them. This is more like we created bees because we need honey, but whatever honey they generate, we just instantly are eating. We don't have to go and make sure they're, we don't have to go and collect it.
We don't have to collect the honey.
They don't bring it to us. We just chew, and if there is honey, we are eating honey. And if there is a shortage, like if I start chewing and there's no honey, then I know there's a problem, right?
Similar to deism in theory, but not entirely, of course. Especially due to monotheism, as this deism traditionally goes in a monotheistic way. This has polytheism, obviously, and these are more. And these are in many ways more cosmic forces often than like entities. We tend to anthropomorphize God specifically. Yes. But and these are less anthropomorphized. They have less of that like single mentality that like we traditionally ascribe to deities.
The air
as humans.
We created air conditioners, but we aren't actively aware of them until they stop working. That's also similar. Very very close, actually.
And living in Oklahoma, if you need that air conditioner, if
your HVAC is gone, bro, you're gonna have issues.
I'm sitting pretty it's 26 degrees outside right now. I'm in a garage and I'm fine. But if it was summer and I was in this garage and I did not have some kind of cooling device on, I would be dying. So
I can sense the disapproval.
Metaphors.
Okay. But yes, since the gods aren't actively watching us or whatever, like if people start peeking into the beyond or in the unknown or any of that kind of stuff, they aren't necessarily doing anything about it. Like, generally speaking, that's gonna sort itself out. So there's not really a concern there.
Yeah, as long as what they're doing is not threatening the cosmic existence of these deities, they aren't too terribly concerned.
Yeah. Okay, but so moving on from Urmoth, we have Oeda, Oeda, the Errant Whisper.
Oh, dude, that's a red album cover.
Oh, that is red album cover.
Continue.
Yeah.
Apologies. I am so squirreling it right now.
And it's
Oeda twists the spirit and is corruption of the soul. Those who give in to the errant whisper are often haunted by it for years before succumbing. Compulsions often keep them from talking about it to others, but eventually they become completely different people, and the previous personality is lost. The replacement is often hostile or mercurial, but always refuses to talk about itself. Those affected... mercurial, yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
Those affected seek constant stimulus at the expense of all else, often single-mindedly chasing after some fixation or desire. So, Oeda is...
all of my ADHD symptoms at once.
Oh, boy. Yeah. It's just like... I imagine, because this is one of the ones where I was like, I'm not 100% sure how you make contact with this one, like with like as much certainty as something like Etro. But I feel like it's one of those where like you're at risk if your drive is low. right? Especially for an extended period of time. Like, you're not empty, right? So you didn't turn undead, but boy, are you at a like a weird point where stuff is starting to feel meaningless. And without diving too deep into that, because mental health, but like it would target people who are at those low points.
Oeda is a predator of people who are having mental health issues.
Exactly.
It is the shark in the void, scenting the blood of your distress.
Exactly. That's a good way to put it. That was very pros of you, Dave.
Yeah. I've had a lot of weird mental interaction with deities that hunt for,
right.
You know.
So I kind of
low points.
And I kind of imagine, targeted by hedonists. Yeah, like, so you can kind of think of that
one way or
as
the other.
You can sort of think of it as twofold, right? It could be people who are listless, right? Or it could be people who are being hedonistic or whatever, giving in to these desires and stuff to fill a void of some kind.
Right, that's what I was
But still in that same, like, they're not really in this headspace, right?
Yeah, the hedonism is not to experience the pleasure itself. They're practicing hedonism to experience anything because they feel they need an extreme level of sensation to trigger their lack of emotional registering in any way. So that is the kind of hedonism that Ueda targets.
Exactly. Because you can see here, like, there's this whole thing about it basically replacing the personality of this person with something else, right? There needs to be this kind of element of whoever's in that body doesn't want to be there, right? For whatever reason. Whereas, so if you have someone who's just this lecherous debaucher, whatever, that's just like, dude, I love fucking and drinking and drugs. That is the best shit ever. They're having the time of their life going to these eyes wide shut parties or whatever the hell they're doing. But that's just what they're about. And they're loving their life. Cool. They're probably not at risk. They definitely want to be there. But if there's someone who's doing that because they're just like, when they're not doing that, they're like, the fuck am I worth? Like, I gotta do something. Fuck this shit. Fuck this being alone with me. I'm the worst. Oh boy. Yeah, you bet Oeda's listening.
Oh yeah. So one of my favorite authors, Graham McNeil, has a very interesting story that delves kind of in this thought concept. And it's about an artist who she doesn't understand her worth or feel that she's good, yet everybody else recognizes her as a master.
Imposter syndrome, of course.
And she kind of goes through this, and part of her thing is she stops being able to really recognize sensation in the right way. And so what she starts doing is she starts murdering people and using their blood and body stuff for her paints, because the colors don't pop right unless she does.
Jesus.
And so she starts to descend into this level of madness of using these people, which also that crosses into some etro territory, but using these people as part of her canvas and whatever. And she can't really feel until eventually a friend of hers who is a sculptor comes to her and talks to her and is able to like snap her out of this. And then she realizes the horror of what she's done. Even though he wasn't able to actually snap her out, he gets murdered by somebody else. But then she sees that murder and then realizes, oh no, I've spent this, I've wasted all of this, I've thrown away my friendship with this wonderful person who's now dead, because I was in pursuit of this thing that isn't real, to fill this void inside myself that I created. And that's like pumping straight into this thing. Graham obviously phrases it way better, but also he does it in way more words than anybody else needed to, because I love Graham McNeil, but he is an incredibly verbose author. Like words, you're on Audible. It's like average book is like 12 hours, 19 hours. Oh, Graham wrote that one.
That's the one you told me about, yeah.
I'm literally listening to a Graham McNeil book right now that when I popped it, I was like, this book is 19 hours long. I was like, oh yeah, Graham wrote this. For any weird reason, if Graham McNeil ever watches YouTube, I love your work. I don't care that it's long.
What do you want? Graham.
Yeah, I want a Graham McNeil. No.
But yeah, so Oeda can replace people with these mercurial, single-minded, thrill chasers, basically, that will not talk about themselves. They're like definitely not the rest of the people that are around, and they're and I'm kind of imagining that the not superstition, but like kind of the belief around that is the people that Oeda is kind of opposite of the crowd, where like all the other souls are kept and such, that the people that are replaced, Oeda takes them, right, corrupts them, and then that's who he and then is putting them into other people's bodies to like continue to collect more and more people. Like it's building up its reserves or whatever. Not saying that's actually what's happening, but I can imagine that being.
That is like the thing that people whisper and discuss and say, this is what happens. And one of the fun things I would say about creating deities and watching people create deities is the myths that people have. And you get to put that in the universe. It doesn't mean that's what's actually happening. It's this great flow of what people say versus what happens. But you yourself as a creator have to create the fake myths that people create about deities, whether or not they are real or not, because obviously the people of the world do not have perfect information about these things.
I'm stealing that.
Oh, the crab versus the collector. I love it. So if anybody ever read or listened to the Sandman series or watched the Sandman, collectors are the serial killers have a convention and they call it the Collectors Convention. And I also love that as a concept. Wow. It's beautiful. Yeah, they call themselves collectors.
Oh, that was the other. God, stop snapping. There's a microphone. That was the other thing that we talked about, where if you kind of lose yourself, right? Like if you're like some kind of master of disguise, some undercover person or whatever, like you're like you're like constantly being someone else or whatever, like constantly playing pretend or whatever.
And
right?
whatever
like
are at risk for this kind of thing.
Are at risk by slowly dissolving their actual personality to like be in the role of other things. Those would be at risk for Oeda as well.
I promise I'm going to stop mentioning 40K at some point. There's a kind of
really
assassin
got it.
We're like
we've had like 30 minutes of 40K.
Calidus assassins are shapeshifters, and I was going to say after they use their polymorphine enough times, it gets to where their body cannot retain its original shape, and they become formless, and that's the same kind of thing they would be in trouble with.
So that's fine because it relates to what we're talking about.
Yeah, I know that's what I meant though, but I swear I'm going to stop mentioning
becoming the mask. Yeah, exactly, becoming the mask. And yeah, so that's Oeda, also terrifying. Mostly terrifying for the classes that would I think it was it the agents that harness power of the unknown?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, because one of the classes
to pull those notes up specifically, but yeah,
it's on one of these pages. One of the classes, like all the classes, kind of deal with like different aspects of the cosmos, and I think it was agents actually can draw partially on the power of the unknown and do shit like they don't necessarily turn invisible, but people can't perceive them, so they're effectively invisible, or have people literally forget they exist by just channeling some of the unknown. They would be very at risk for this kind of thing. Cool. And then the fourth is Diox, or Dioriax, the Lost Echoes. And this one is this is pretty much how we can get evil undead or evil undead armies, right? Diox can appear within undead, right? Its presence can show up as this alien intellect with an unquenchable thirst for like the humors of living people, and a very just like a single-minded desire to just end life. Let's see, it's not like, so these other evil deities or dark presences as they're called, there's this kind of element of curiosity to them, like they're sort of curious about humans and about why we do what we do, and they like seem to be exploring in a way some of the aspects of us. Diox is not curious. Diox does not find us entertaining. Diox wants to get rid of us. He wants to drink us all. To be like, cool, that was fine. Glad those things are fucking out of here.
Yes, this is the one where we are pest animals to this being, right?
Yes.
It is very much that, like, let me get these ants out of my house. So.
Fuck, they're like cats playing with their food. You know, that's not a bad analogy. I would almost make them more akin to like children like playing with like bugs, you know? And like not really like understanding conceptually that like they're like so much bigger than them and you can like hurt them and that kind of thing, right? Um, you know, just ripping its limbs off or whatever. Like, man, this is weird. How's it still moving? You're like, bro, don't do that.
Yeah.
Like, tearing its legs off, man. You wouldn't want someone to do that to you. It's not a human. It's different. This is like,
Yep.
man, these things are weird. Why do they do this or whatever? Like, but there's this element of curiosity to them that there is not in Deox, and it is Deox is I wouldn't call it a reckoning for just all of the undead that exist, but it is a risk of just having so many of them, right? Pretty much any time like you can almost think of it almost like an iRobot type situation in a way, or like the Detroit Become Human thing, where like when they start doing shit, or hell, even Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, where like when they start doing shit that doesn't make sense for an undead to do, they're just eliminated. Like that gets destroyed. Because if there's go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep is one of my favorite things, except for the main character of that has the dumbest name, but keep going.
Yeah.
But
yeah, it's literally one of those risks.
Is it what?
Joblin.
No.
Oh, that's a pretty dumb name. Though.
So, am I done talking about Deox? Are we just done there?
No, keep talking about Deox.
So, God, I can only be interrupted so many times where my train of thought just derails completely.
Deox wants
This
to...
dark presence is it appears within undead kind of randomly, right? So there's like it's very dangerous because it can also control other undead. It can also give them orders, but can control them in a way that is not like we can tell them what to do, right? Or maybe wire some shit to them or whatever that gives like specific signals to their brain or some shit, right? An undead that has Deox's presence in it is much closer to like casting the spell Control Undead. It just asserts control over shit, which is a problem. And so you can like if someone sees like, you know, maybe its eye color changes weirdly, or like it's a little too smart to have done the order the way that they told it to do it, which is a thing that can just happen naturally because they do still have technically living brains that are just otherwise non-functional, like they aren't autonomous. So undead can like sometimes do shit that like is a little more advanced, but they are pretty much immediately destroyed because if there's any chance that one was possessed by Deox, that is a huge issue. Because if unsupervised, they can just start control over shit and form an army and start fucking shit up. So, yeah.
This is how you get synths. Anyways.
Right. So yeah, that one's a problem. Obsessed with like death, decay, destruction. It's pretty much the big bad in so far that like it's on no one's side. So, and
it is only on entropy and death's side.
Exactly. And even if you destroy the undead that it possesses, like it'll be back. And it's always the same entity. So it remembers what happened. And
remembers that you messed up its ability to exterminate people.
Yeah. Like it's always the same one. You can't kill the dark presence. You just can't do that. You can just eliminate its tools where they appear. So yeah. They're the germaphobe of the cosmos, right? Like, ew, people. What the fuck?
Gross.
Oh, what are they doing? They're eating. That's disgusting.
It is the universe's exterminator. Yeah, we are.
Like, doesn't give reasons or anything like that. It's just fucking killing people and draining their humors. That's it. So yeah, those are fun. Shit. So okay, yeah, that's all of them. Etro, Urim, Oeda, Deox for their short names, or the Unshaped, the Den of Screams, the Errant Whisper or Collector, and then the Lost Echoes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Cool.
In random reference to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, my Mareep in Silver is nicknamed Rosen, which, if you've watched Blade Runner or read the book, Rosen is the name of the android that Deckard deals with the entire time.
There's a Blade Runner TTRPG coming out. I'm pretty sure.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I saw that.
I remember seeing.
I'm curious what mechanics they're going to use.
Right. Okay. Let me look at the timeline thing here real quick. I think that's where we had the descriptions for. Nope. I like the descriptions for our triumvirate. We came up with a whole bunch of shit for him. Maybe it is in the timeline. Which I need to edit, but that's fine. Oh yeah, we haven't even talked about the rifts. Yeah, we haven't talked about any of the origin shit.
Nope.
So, excuse me. Part of the other reason that I wanted to have an increased feeling of like distance from the actual deities is because Shard isn't like they didn't like make Shard and then like put people on it on purpose. It kind of formed from other worlds that were destroyed or decayed or lost otherwise and kind of drifted back out of the unknown and formed together. So the mortals, the humans that exist on a Shard, are incidentally the most complete ones. They're like an amalgamation of all the others, right? We don't have any current plans to actually explore other worlds created by the gods yet. But so are you guys gonna write a book in this universe like Drist, but less Mary Sue? Yeah, probably. I've already written a couple like short story things for our early concepts of it, but
yeah, to help get the concept work down, and they were very good. I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
Speaking of reading a lot of your work as a writer,
right.
So one of the things, speaking of that, of books and whatever, is we wanted to obviously keep the rule books small. That was something I said at the beginning of this when we were talking about it. And so our rule books aren't going to have a lot of, if you've noticed, if you've read 5e books, or if you've read Pathfinder specifically, or Dark Heresy, or Star Wars, why can I not remember the name of that stinking RPG by Fantasy Flight? Because it has a specific name. Anyways, or any of those other ones. There's a lot of times in the rule book where there's this much rules text on a page, and the rest of the page is flavor and background text. We're going to try and cut a lot of that to save space in the rule book to give you more mechanical stuff, and then also have companion books that have a lot more of the story stuff specifically for our storyteller. Storyteller was the name we were going to go with instead of GM for a while.
I think we were going with narrator.
Narrator. That was what it was. Specifically for our narrator.
Yeah, narrator.
It was narrator. Specifically for our narrator to help them work from and conceptualize if they want to have them, but they're not required. So we're going to give people a really bare bones breakdown of a lot of stuff, but we are going to have a lot of secondary story material for people to work and build off of. And we are talking about working on modules as well. But our initial like release concept is just player's handbook, narrator guide, right? And those two things should be able to play the game entirely. And in our initial release thing, if let's say it's a package, whatever, where you have both things, we also want a quick start guide that's really small and has all of the basics and some pre-built, pre-gen characters and stuff so that you could just pick it up and play it almost immediately. But then beyond that, we are talking about like trying to design some modules and story things that go into the lore of the universe much more deeply than obviously the bare bones of the books will. The rule books, I should say, because the books will probably go a lot deeper. So yeah, for that on the things. So
man, I cannot find. I really hope that's written down somewhere. Like some of the historical events, I remember a bunch of it.
I was looking in our Dealy Bopper here, and
there's a lot of like old setting stuff that's not in. This doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah. But anyways, what we were talking about something else before I decided to pipe in on that and give a good answer about part of our design statement that we wanted to make with how our rule books are presented.
Yeah, I was talking about that Shard is an amalgamation of Lost Worlds and such. And because it's a so one of the main kind of things that's happening on Shard are these rifts will open and you'll have bullshit will come out of them. Whether it be like, just different terrain changes or monsters or whatever come spilling out of these things. Or sometimes they suck stuff in and will leave an area desolate. Because of these rifts are initially in prehistory, when the deities finally noticed that Shard existed, and that there were mortals on it, and that it was actually fairly important. They would send these proxies essentially to come and try to like deal with this, with these rifts, because like they're not a normal thing. They're not like a normal thing that like a person can like close. So they send these proxies to do it. Eventually, these proxies had to go do other shit. And so they would grant power to champions. Wait, what? Oh, God. They grant power to these champions. I'm going to search for that word. Hey, there it is. Okay. They would make these champions to basically protect the... That's what it was. Yeah, the champions would protect people, right? While the proxies closed rifts. And the proxies were essentially, as far as people were concerned, those were the gods. They were the most direct thing of them. And these champions were their anointed. And, there was only so many of these champions. So there was lots of, like, people in settlements and whatnot that were unprotected. That did not have the aid of a champion to protect them from shit coming out of these rifts, right? That is where that's initially like where people discover magic. They figure out read the supernal language backwards. Oh shit, we can control these elements. We can protect ourselves. And when the champions see this, that people are basically utilizing the power of the gods, have like found this way to protect themselves. They don't really see it that way because they know that their role, of course, is obviously to protect people, but also it is very important that people see the gods as necessary. If they start being able to do all this stuff on their own and don't need these deities' power anymore, then eventually maybe they forget about them. And so there becomes this rift between the champions and the regular people learning arcane magic to defend themselves when the champions aren't there. Champions being like, nope, can't do that shit, that undermines the power of the gods. You guys need to just depend on us. And they're like, we can't just depend on you. You're not always here. But yeah, like I said, eventually the proxies, bam, they leave, right? Because they are needed elsewhere. And so you just now no longer have these entities that are like closing these rifts and can kind of arbitrate this stuff a little bit from a more godly perspective. So it's just the champions and the people. So that falling out happens, obviously. War were declared, right? Eventually, there's a blow up between the champions and the regular people, and while the champions are incredibly powerful, far beyond just like each of them is far beyond like a regular person. They're like a one person army essentially. But the regular people are actual armies, so it's not like they're screwed anyway. All this fighting happens, and Let me see. I have to. I couldn't find this before, so I'm kind of like gonna reread some of this a little bit as I'm going on. Okay, yeah, that's right. So, as this stuff, as this like continues to like boil over, and the fighting continues. They like kind of build up their own strongholds and such. Like, you have your peasants essentially. Kind of build their own little stronghold. They establish their own city where they kind of hole up in it to make this like one sort of like fortress essentially, and where they can protect the original people who like discovered this, so that they can disseminate this knowledge, like teach people how to draw on this power, and they can continue to do that throughout the rest of the society. They have to protect these people, because if the champions kill them, they're going to lose this knowledge, right? Whereas there are obviously people who are rallying around the champions as well. They're not just alone, right? Especially, some of the other peasants that were constantly protected by the champions are going to side with them. So they build up their own stronghold, and these become sort of their own societies, right? Eventually you have the peasants people become the college. And their goal... Did I write down their goal?
Did I write it down? So, yeah.
Their
I've
mission...
asked that question too many times.
Essentially, their mission is to master the unknown. But I don't think that means... They're not talking about the realm of unknown. They aren't trying to master the actual, what would be called Nullia, if we're using all the fantasy language that I wrote down for each of these realms.
Yeah.
They're trying... so that's what it was. So I didn't write it down. But the college's main goal is so that people can... So everyone can protect themselves from what comes out of these rifts, from all these things that they can't control. They basically want everyone to have the knowledge and power to defend themselves from other entities, things not of shard. Right?
You could think of it too in a concept of like they're trying to evolve isn't the right word, but evolve the human race into a like group of people who can harness this power. It's like this evolution from like regular people to everybody being magically powered in some way, because they feel like that will grant, if that knowledge, that level of experience and skill will grant us all the ability to protect ourselves better and protect the world better, right? So that's kind of a way to like look at how they're shooting, or at least their stated goal. As with most things run by people, it devolves into personal goals, but the college as an organization's stated goal.
Yeah, basically their method of this is, of course, to consolidate power, right? But that's their main mission statement, where it all started. That's what they were built on, was the ability for people to, under whatever means they could, get the power to protect themselves. Sounds great. Obviously, people are involved, so it's a little bit corrupted.
Yeah, it gets screwed up, because that's how we do.
Ellie says they're trying to disseminate information, unlike the jerks trying to hold the power to themselves, or the opposite of the Brotherhood of Steel or the Enclave. Be careful with painting them as the good guys here.
Yeah, well, I would say they are very much also in the Brotherhood of Steel sense that they are trying to attain all of that old knowledge and information and technology, and defend others with it, which is what the Brotherhood of Steel is supposed to do. But the Brotherhood of Steel also jealously guards that knowledge from others, whereas the college in many cases invites you to learn it, but they try and keep you kind of on that superficial level. The deeper mysteries are something only for higher level people within the college and like higher level scholars. They also, they're big fans of rather reckless experimentation.
Yes. It's also very much of like, you have to be with them to get it's not just like, even though obviously the front is like, all is welcome, knowledge should be available to everyone, god damn it, how dare you hoard this information, but the reality is still like, you kind of need to work with them or do something for them or be a part of their dogma or whatever.
Yeah.
In order to actually get access to the information and teachings that they have.
You need a little bit more than
they're
a
not just sending
card.
out pamphlets or sending instructors to rule, villages and stuff to be like, it's time for you to learn magic, right?
Yep.
So
you need a little more than a library card.
Exactly. So that's them. And then you have so then of course there's the church, which develops from people who were loyal to the champions, but mostly their focus is on the rifts, because they recognize that those obviously are the big problem, right? But also that it's important for humans to remain relevant to the deities, to the gods. Because if we're not, maybe Shard becomes one of these lost worlds as well. Like, we don't know what they're doing or what rules are in place to maintain this as a world. If we abandon them completely, what happens? We don't know, right? But a lot of their goal is to basically recreate the proxies, to reach a level of understanding and ability with the supernal language that there can be new proxies to give the gods greater reach, so that there could potentially be a solution to these rifts. They can make more proxies. They can start closing the rift, like actually closing them off, rather than just fending them off until they move or shut on their own. And so that's really their main focus, but they are very vehemently against anything that potentially undermines the gods because of this. Including, they're not super cool with the way that the college approaches power. So
they're incredibly dogmatic in their approach to attaining this, godly power, right? And
yes,
anything that reaches outside of that dogma is to be shunned and shut down. As we had said before too, the interaction of this triumvirate of three powers is one of necessity, not one of mutual, respect or like.
Yes.
If it was up to them, the college would be shut down, but they have far too much influence and power for them to actually do that. So they have to outwardly appear to work with them, even if inwardly they are opposing them.
Ellie says, like back in the day with teaching girls basic stuff with the boys, but then having them do home ec and wifery classes while the guys could go off to university. In reference to the church, no, not necessarily. I'm not even sure how to apply that analogy.
I will say this. One thing about Shard that we have made very clear is it's a very equal place. Everybody suffers the same.
Yeah. Everybody's in a shit position for the most part.
So there's not a whole lot of that, gender bias or even even racial bias or anything like that, because it is too extreme of a place to worry about those things.
There's probably mostly a wealth disparity, right?
Yeah, which as with all games, there was a quote on Dimension 20 about Brennan Lee Mulligan, where it's like, Brennan Lee Mulligan's GMing, so the real enemy is capitalism. as with all real RPGs, the true enemy is capitalism.
So Ellie says, this is to the college. There's a tier of people allowed to learn more than the basic. That'd be accurate, right? Now I will say that in theory, the college is something of a meritocracy as far as how they do that. In fact, I'd say pretty much all three of these organizations are. If you prove yourself useful or worthy of whatever the next step is, they're going to do it because it's beneficial.
Yeah, they don't work off a caste system or a level of birth or whatever. It is your ability to earn or work through or learn things. If you show yourself as particularly gifted, strong, useful, intelligent, whatever, they are going to maximize you. And by doing so, it will often be getting you into deeper parts of the mysteries. Think of it almost more like a Masonic guild or the Woodcutters or something like that, like a secret society thing where they have multiple levels and you advance pretty much based off of merit and what you can give to the organization.
Yeah, exactly. And
except they're not secret societies.
But yeah, but pretty much all three of them kind of work that way because they all sort of have a practical goal. and like the church's goal is practical. It makes sense. The biggest problem as for everyone is the rifts. That's where just like, all these like weird threats will come from. That are just outside of the shit we've already described, right? So anyway, so yeah, the church's goal, of course, is to bring back the proxies, close the rifts, and then
they're also, of course, concerned with the moral degradation of society because they're a church.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. They do have some more traditional church-like things to them, even though the way I see them structured isn't like if you carry all of the same biases against a church that you have in like you might have in real life, or for or against, I should say. It's then the church is going to be really weird to you because it's not so much about religious dogma. There is a very practical focus to a lot of what they deal with spirituality kind of framing it, right?
And yeah, and I was gonna say, with their like view on how arcane magic is bad for the use of the supernal language, like it hurts using the supernal language background and whatever. That's the kind of dogmatic thing they're more sticklers about, and the stuff that they adhere to more rigidly than like blasphemy in any case of like taking a god's name in vain, because these are not beings as much as they are, you know, like you've said, and like kind of described, they are like cosmic processes, almost like a cosmic machine, more than they are like entities themselves, like thinking, reasoning entities. And the church approaches them that way. They don't try and anthropomorphize them in the same way that a church that you might run into in the real world anthropomorphizes a cosmic being.
Exactly.
Because they are different. They are just not set up like a traditional church that you might think of, or that I might think of, you know, with the life experiences I've had. And that's cool because it's this interesting level of dogma that we don't necessarily look at through our everyday lens.
Yes. A lot of it is like, so less of like praying to the gods and more like learning about them or trying to make yourself of use to their system. Right. But it's also like they're going to be very rigid and very probably like they have some animosity towards anyone who is like blasphemous or atheist or whatever like that, just because of even if you think of it in a practical way, they're just going, oh, you're part of the problem, right? Like this person is actively hurting our chances of being successful, right?
Yeah. And sorry, Ellie makes a good point in the chat too, that they are trying to censor behaviors that lead to dealing with the 4 evil deities, or the 4 like be big on whatever. That. So that is another part of their dogma, is they are very strict on, they are like the watchword kind of people for these actions. They are that like inquisitorial secret police almost, to clamp down on things that would create a way for these deities to go in. So they're very, they use the undead, right? But they're those people who are the very like monitoring the use of undead more strictly than anyone else. Whereas like everybody uses the undead as a form of free labor in this world. But these guys are the people who police those undead in a strict way, right?
Yes.
That any weird action
way less willy-nilly about it.
Needs to be met immediately and decommissioned, destroyed, whatever you want to say. So they're the people who are on top of that in a lot of ways. And as much as we haven't gotten to the council yet, and the council are governmentally speaking much more like police and whatever, these people are the moral police is wrong, because it's not so much about morality, but it's about mentality, right? Because again, in the pragmatism way, the biggest enemy to them are the rifts and the bad 4 cosmic entities. So those are the things they're worried about protecting. Those are the things their laws and enforcement are specifically used on.
Exactly. Hard agree. I feel like there was more details somewhere here, but anyway, so yeah, council will be our next, and the council was the latest to form because, essentially they formed. Also, Ellie says at their worst, she's picturing thought police for the church, and I would say that's accurate.
Yeah, they're the Inquisition, like the Spanish Inquisition. If you think about it that way, and that you had bad thoughts, smack, like we're gonna hang you up by your toes now and flail you to death. I don't know,
right? And some people would be like, "That's extreme," and others would be like, "It's fine."
Yeah, other people would be like, "They're not going hard enough,"
right?
They're like, yeah, in a lot of ways too. The extremist version of them is like witch trials kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Where it's not necessarily provable guilt, but they're gonna take it anyways. They don't care.
Yeah.
Anything to
whatever, it solves the problem. Just execute.
Yeah, anything to solve the problem that you're running into. Yeah.
So the council was basically formed initially as a neutral meeting ground to try to broker peace between the college and the church. Sort of the initial project there. They had people that like band together to form this like, walled settlement and such that was protected, to say, hey, look, we all really need to work together. The world is fucked. I don't know if you've seen it, but it'd be real nice if y'all could get along. You've got great resources. You've got great knowledge. You've got great knowledge. Can we all like try to figure out how to like do both of what you're wanting? We could all be able to protect ourselves and then get these rifts closed and like maybe not have to worry about so much shit.
Be able to prosper instead of just survive.
Yeah. Sounds like I mean, of course, they're all kind of founded in for a reasonable reason. I think one of the main things we wanted to focus on is like they're all all these organizations were made for a good reason.
Yeah.
And how do you solve a problem like Maria? I don't know. I feel like there's a bit there. So that was their initial thing, right? I believe what happens is the sides really can't come to an agreement, right? And I get what you're saying. Yeah. The sides can't really come to an agreement, and the people who will eventually become the council in this neutral area are kind of slowly becoming more and more outsiders. Like the college doesn't really want to teach them anything because they're afraid they're going to just go take it to the church to try to like kind of commingle their information and whatnot. And the same with the church. They don't really want to like try to like, bring these people into the fold and stuff. If basically they don't trust them. Call it projection, whatever you want. The people who are these neutral party are not like deeply trusted by the other two entities, as far as like letting them in on into their territories, into like the deepest parts of their circles. So this neutral ground kind of becomes its own thing. These people sort of have to stay here because they can't really like exist with their beliefs in the like. Because by the way, this is our world is gonna like, or the realm of Rift Reach. It pretty much has 4 major cities. That's it. You've got the Triumvirate City, which has equal representation from all 3 groups. Then you have a college city, a church city, and a council city.
These are the only big cities. There's like small settlements and things like that in other places, but these are the population centers.
Big population centers, yeah.
You've got farms, ranches, whatever, people who are homesteading out in the wilderness. And again, these people are taking big risks on themselves because these rifts can theoretically pop up anywhere and stuff can just pop out. So these people are either the people who are trying to be on the edges of society to not attract attention, or the people who are trying to do something a little riskier, or are really trying to strike it big or make it rich, right? So think of like prospectors almost in a lot of senses. And these people are not necessarily savory individuals, so most people go to the havens of the cities.
Yes. So anyway, so the council city essentially forms, right? As they like gather more people and stuff. So you've got the college city, or the college as an entity in general, is where you think, okay, this is your arcane magic, your wizards type people. And then you've got your religious folk, you got your church, you got your like paladins and clerics and shit, right? So what the fuck is going to happen at this council? Well, these people, because they're not trusted, are essentially denied access to magic. They can't go to the college and learn magic. They can't go to the church and learn magic. So they're good with weapons.
This is where you get most of your marshals from.
This is where you get most of your like you're just like you're straight up weapon development. Your mercenaries, you get your like marksmen and that kind of thing. People that are really good with that kind of shit because they had to be. They end up forming the council because that's always supposed to be like the meeting place for everyone, right? They always have seats open for the church and the college. But generally speaking, kind of what has happened is that it's sort of formed its own. They've sort of formed their own group of rulers, basically.
Yeah, they've almost created a bureaucracy in the absence of the other two getting along with them.
Yes.
So
they've become their own entity that their goal is still to kind of unite Riftreach, and make everyone work together. However, that's not the pure motive anymore. Now they now have terms, right? They now have kind of their own things that they want out of this, like how they've created this space. They've created these weapons. They've created all these other things that like now people have what they want. It's like, well, you can't just like march in and be like, hey, we're buds now, right? No, it's not quite.
Yep, that's not how this works.
Now you didn't trust us before. No. Trust is earned. We want you here to meet, but like we have terms now. We have things to bring to the table. So suffice to say, negotiations are pretty stagnant, right? Riftreach as a nation exists, right? There is peace, but there's not really this unification. They just work together because they have to. They need to survive.
They've reached an awkward level of cooperation and stability where everyone is afraid of tipping the balance in one way or the other. So they're not willing to aid the other because they're afraid that it will tip the balance too far against them or something like that. And so because there's 3 parties in this triumvirate, I read Alex' comment too. That's what you're laughing out of it. Yeah.
Yep.
But because there's 3 parties in this triumvirate, each is afraid to aid another too strongly because they're afraid to change the balance in any marked way that could negatively affect them. So it's kind of reached this weird stagnation point where it's stable but stagnant.
Yeah. Stable but not quite Cold War, because that was still openly hostile, but
yeah,
nobody's firing a shot.
This is not, these people are not on the brink of war with each other.
No.
They are just afraid of being edged out politically speaking. It's a lot closer in a way to like how a political like body like a Senate would be, where people are afraid of losing seats to other people and being essentially voted down to nothing.
The Cold War analogy fits insofar as like obviously they're incentivized not to fall behind one another, right? You can't lose ground, you can't lose face, you can't fall behind in the thing you're good at, because that's how you lose your seat. So those are our 3 entities.
I would say this is a weirder analogy to bring it even farther. It's much more like in 1917 during the Socialist Revolution, where you had SRs, Mensheviks, and Bolsheviks all trying to get the same piece of the pie, and then the Bolsheviks just took it. Because the balance shifted so hard in their direction because they were able to do certain things during the revolution in 1917. They just pulled the rug out from everybody else and were like, ours now, thank you. And that's what everyone is really afraid of, is all these people are together working on the same thing, pushing in the same direction. But if one side gets too much power, they can just sweep the rug out from underneath the other two and then slowly over time just, crush those people underfoot until they're the only ones in charge, which is exactly what the Bolsheviks did in Russia.
2 hours and 26 minutes without Dave mentioning a revolution.
I mentioned one earlier.
So those are pretty much our organizations, and you're wondering like, so where does like playing come into this?
Right? Yeah, we've done a lot of background chatty here.
Yeah. So obviously we have things like Rifts producing bullshit You have things like nomads and other things out in the wilds. You've got undead that could be waking up and causing havoc. You've got a lot of like different kind of threats that could appear.
Unsanctioned random Dr. Frankensteins building corpse armies in the wastes.
Exactly, 100%. I think that's actually one of the first things we talked about as far as like
it was. I think like conceptually we were like, that's a really cool idea,
right?
But you got that kind of stuff. You've also got like I know we talked about like people building these clockwork golem-esque contraption things as well and stuff like that, like and just the different ways people could infuse humors into these things to make them run and operate. And those people like rogue people from the college building these kind of contraptions would be terrible. Then you've got like mercenary groups that would be like rogue people from the council who have decided they're going to take things in their own hands and use military force. That's a problem. You've got people who are now starting a cult worship of the four evil deities. That's a problem. Like, and so all sorts of these things could pop up in the wastes outside of the cities or even inside the cities, to where you have intrigue and that very detective noir feel going through cities to build interesting like adventures for your players.
JB says, I bet if there was cutscenes in this, we wouldn't be able to skip them. He replies, that's for the supplemental
contraire, mon frere. That was why we wanted to take a lot of the like story stuff not in the main books and not necessarily have tons of those things where before you build your sorcerer, you have to read 3 pages of descriptions on why sorcerers are sorcerers. We wanted to cut a lot of that out. So in fact, skippable cutscenes is part of our motto.
Yes. But so as far as like adventures are concerned, right? Generally the way that happens is like one of these 3 entities is like, they're all needing things constantly, right? The church needs things done. It needs heretics, fucking found and brought to justice, or they've found some like coven of pagans, because pagans exist, and, of course, that is doing fucked up experiments and like weird mutilated undead keep coming out of the woods or some shit, right? The college is like, hey, some fucking weird I don't know, weird shit has happened. Weird shit has happened over here, and we want to discover that. We want people to go check it out and see what it is. Or the council being like, there's a bandit fortress that everyone's ignoring. Please take that out. Please take that out.
Like, everyone's ignoring it.
It's been there a while, right? Yeah. And so adventuring groups would be like basically members of these organizations or other freelancers who would be hired to go and deal with this, right? Like the church hires you for a job because that's what they would do. Like if you're a member of the church, of course, there are going to be different benefits for your character for going to take on this task.
But the church understands that they need more than just their people sometimes to deal with specific things. So they're going to reach out. They're going to have a coalition, an agreement with the other groups to borrow people from their number or hire, like you said, freelancers, people who are not associated with any of the 3.
Exactly. So very much, oddly, despite how weird this world is, you very much follow similar lines to how an adventuring party is formed. A call goes out, people answer it, right? The main difference is just that like there's these major organizations that your characters could be or could not be a part of. You could just be all freelancers, all whatever the hell else, not actually associated with the main parts of these organizations, that just whatever this job is, you jumped on it first and we're like, hey, we'll do that for this much. And they're like, cool, go. But yeah, there's that. You can obviously, of course, be unsanctioned, because that is the thing. You have to be sanctioned to take these jobs. Like someone has to agree and stamp a piece of paper to say, yeah, we hired them to do this, or you're doing it illegally. And someone's probably willing to pay you for that, though. You could even be doing it for one of the organizations illegally because they don't want to share the results or whatever, right?
Yeah, because they didn't want the other 2 to sign off on it or to say, yay, okay, or to even tell them that they were doing this thing. So Precisely. They're like, hey, this is all under the table. If you get caught, you don't know us.
You could play fucking weirdos out not in the main cities, like dealing with trying to survive being not in a city. Like there's a lot of room for it, but we can get into that more, I guess, next time because it is midnight.
It is, but you know what? I think we covered a lot of the bases we wanted to hit, and we kind of got into that. And I definitely feel much more refreshed and new on this information because this is something that we had kind of put down for a long time, and I'm very excited to get back into it and start talking about it again.
Yeah. So did we accomplish our goal? Do we know what our goal is going to be next time we do this?
So I think our goal next time. One thing is we're gonna do is we're out of time, so I don't want to go too long-winded. Top-down design is a big part of this. We want to make mechanics fit thematic events, right? And so I think a big part of our goal next time should be to understand how we're going to line up some of our mechanics with our thematics that we just spent a whole bunch of time talking about, because we just hit on a lot of thematics. So now next time, since we've discussed that we're going to do pass-fail die system and D10s, we need to see how we're going to make our mechanics fit into our thematics. Or at least begin that zippering together of those things. Yes, because that's the idea we want to have from top-down design, is that things should work like they sound they work, right?
Yes.
We have a concept, so the thematic and the mechanic right here should zipper together, and everything should fit nice and neat. In theory.
In theory, right?
Okay.
We've also got, I think, some more thematic discussion to go through next time, just to get some more groundwork. We didn't get to talk about mer people.
Oh yeah,
we didn't. We didn't get to.
Yeah,
we didn't get to talk about
that. Then
I did, and we didn't get to talk about it. We will. We didn't get to talk about some of our just nice like conceptual stuff for classes, which is also thematic. But I think that one of the reasons I brought up how we're going to blend thematic and mechanic is we want to talk about the classes and how those blend thematic and mechanic. So I think that should be something on our docket for next time and is part of our stated goal. How we're going to make what you can do in this, what we story tell you can do in this universe, mechanically appear on your tabletop with our classes and our different variations and all our cool stuff, and how being linked to specific, the three entities of the triumvirate affects you as a character and all of those things, and how again we can work through this top down and making these thematic story things we just talked about fit your tabletop play, mechanically speaking.
That's the stream. We did it.
Woo! We did, man. That, I will be honest, that flew by. I am amazed that it is already midnight.
We talked for 3 hours.
We did. Yeah.
We talked.
You did a lot of the heavy lifting there, Patrick.
Well, it was mostly story stuff. So.
That is true. And I appreciate all the work you've put into this, and I am excited to see where we can push this in the future. And I hope everybody else really liked this. If you do, make sure you give us like, follow, subscribe, whatever, all that good stuff. But again, Discord. If you want to be on the playtesting, if you want to check out any of that stuff, Discord is the place to go. Panda, can you drop that link one more time for us?
Yeah, see if I still have it saved.
That's the thing too.
There is a
we're available and on a lot. So even when we're doing stuff, Patrick and I have ADHD, we will answer questions even at inopportune times, even at 3 a.m, because neither of us know how to sleep. And so if you want to talk about stuff or have questions, bug us on there, man. We'll hit it up. Just add us. You can at Hyperfase, at Kiken, if you have questions. Heck, you can at Panda.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at I'm looking at Molly's art.
Yeah, oh yeah, I know. You just now got to look at that? Yeah, I looked at it earlier. You missed me smile and giggle at it.
Who is that? Oh God. Anyway, yes. Everything Dave said is correct. Anytime I see a ping on this on the Unnatural 1's Discord server, I'm like, what is it? I'm safe. Yep. It's nothing. So, but
we're about it. And if you're on Twitch with us right now, check out the YouTubes for stuff. But if you're on YouTube, remember we do stream on Twitch every Tuesday, 9 p.m. CST.
Yeah, and
Pathfinder first edition, and then this.
Yeah, speaking of Discord, I am going to do my best to have the list of potential jobs for Arc 2 of
Sweet.
Into the Storm
I'm excited.
ready for you guys to vote on, so that by the time next week rolls around, that'll be in the Discord for everybody to vote on.
Yay! That's gonna be fun.
Yes, next week we are back to Into the Storm.
Into the Storm.
Into the Storm. Yeah, technically start of Arc 2, but there's obviously going to be some downtime-ish stuff. So
Get ready for shopping. Because
excuse
we
me.
have a ton of money all of a sudden.
y'all got some monies and new
So,
levels and some stuff to deal with.
Yeah. Woo! Yeah, we're gonna talk about that. I'm sure everybody's gonna want to talk about the cool new things they learned.
So yeah,
So.
next week.
But thank you all for coming.
Should we raid?
Oh, who's doing stuff?
I see Blue is on. She's playing
Blue is
Yakuza 3
on.
Remastered.
I was gonna say Cedric Phillips, but he's got more than Blue if we're wanting to raid lower people.
Yeah.
I love Cedric Phillips though. Cedric's got 90. Blue's got 41.
Yeah, she got 42 on my screen here.
Okay.
Yakuza 3 Remastered. That's fun. That's a fun watch. Holy shit.
Also, remember we have social medias. You can share those.
We do.
Talk to us on those.
Yell at your friends and
I'm
parents
generally the
to-
person you're going to be talking to, but say hi to me. Yeah. Hey. Also,
To
we might do
follow
more
us.
of these because we're going to need to hit that extra stream level, right? So we might do a couple of these Mondays, because that's the free day Patrick and I both have, and just to get our extra streams out so we can hit that level to where we can be affiliate.
Yeah. Once we hit 50 followers, that's literally the only thing we're missing is the 3 extra streams. So.
Yeah. So we might just do those on Mondays and do this stuff.
Night, everybody. I'm gonna
Good
start the
night.
raid.
Woo! Raid away.
Raid.
It
Where's
takes
that?
3
2
guesses
Love.
as to what I'm going to go
Raid.
do right now.
Can't get
Exit
enough.
screen. That's
Raid. Like it. Raid. Oh.
Did you rather feel raid than nothing at all? Yeah, I'm gonna hit raid now.